Konoha East Uchiha is very cautious. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 376, Admonition and Encouragement. The severe cold of winter gradually fades away, and the warm breath comes. Everything seems to wake up overnight, and the passage of time is quietly displayed in the landscape painting of Konoha. In the early spring morning, the sun shines through the thin clouds and sprinkles on the earth, depicting a golden light for the silent Konoha. The snow gradually melts in the sun, forming a stream, flowing in the valley, making a gurgling sound. The cold of winter is gradually replaced by the warm spring breeze. The breeze brushes the cheeks, bringing a hint of warmth. As time goes by, spring is getting stronger. The dead branches begin to sprout, swaying gently in the spring breeze. The green leaves gradually grow lush, covering the originally bare branches. The wild flowers on the roadside bloom one by one, adding a touch of color to Konoha. The rotation of the four seasons and the passage of time make the world a better place. Have you really decided? In Uchiha Fugaku's mansion, Fugaku, sitting in the main seat, looked at Toshiro, who maintained a faint smile, and the corners of his mouth twitched uncontrollably. Ah, I've decided. After all, this is my dream. What a bullshit dream. Isn't it just wanting to be like Jiraiya and wandering around outside? He really couldn't imagine that there was such a weirdo like Toshiro in his family. He even told him that he wanted to go on a spontaneous trip. It was just nonsense. After being exposed by himself, he even admitted it shamelessly. Then, the Hokage. Don't worry, that old man is very bad. Maybe he wants me to die outside. He picked up the tea in his hand and blew it. He had to admit that the tea made by Mrs. Mikoto was very good. I think not only the Hokage, but even the chief of the Fugaku clan would like me to leave Konoha as soon as possible. Putting down the teacup in his hand, Toshiro looked at Uchiha Fugaku with a very calm expression. Did Toshiro find out? Fugaku sighed and did not refute. As Toshiro became stronger, the restless guys in the family became more and more active. Whenever he held a regular family meeting, he was trembling with fear. He was afraid that if he didn't handle it well, it would cause unnecessary conflicts between the family and the village. Patriarch Fugaku, I don't object to your idea of getting closer to the village, but I have a few things to remind you. After these years of contact, Toshiro also knew that the chief of the family, Uchiha Fugaku, was actually an Uchiha with the will of fire. He really didn't know how to complain. In this way, it makes sense that there would be such a performance in the original work. What can I say about the will of fire? It's understandable for a ninja to believe in the will of fire when he is young. It proves that he is a kind and reliable child. But if he still believes in it at the age of the clan leader, it only proves that the clan leader is too naive. Don't look at what the Sandaime Hokage says. Look at what he does. Is Toshiro so wary of the Sandaime? As the Hokage, I don't like some of his actions, but I have to admit that there is some reason for him to do so. But, I'm not the Hokage after all, so I should be on guard against him. Having said that, Toshiro looked at Fugaku with a serious expression. But you, especially your eldest son, if you get too close to the Hokage, you may become a sharp blade aimed at our Uchiha in the future. What are you going to do then? Don't worry, Toshiro, this kind of thing will never happen. Ichi is a smart child, and he will definitely become the pride of the family in the future. Hearing Toshiro's warning, Fugaku was shocked, but he didn't think his son had any reason to do so, and quickly spoke to defend his son. I hope so. Back at home, Toshiro sat on the sofa in his living room and began to think. With his existence, is there a possibility that the clan will be exterminated again in a few years? After a long time, Toshiro, who had nothing to gain, looked towards the direction of his own front door. There, the 14-year-old Uchiha Shizui walked in. Toshiro Sr., I wonder what you want me to do. As soon as he entered the door, Shizui bowed very respectfully, then sat on the sofa opposite Toshiro, looking at Toshiro quietly. Shizui, Have you ever thought about becoming a Hokage? Seeing this outstanding junior, Toshiro didn't beat around the bush and asked his question directly. What? Shizui just picked up the tea on the coffee table and heard Toshiro's words. He almost couldn't believe his ears. It seems that you have never thought about this. Seeing Shizui's expression, Toshiro didn't know that the other party had no such idea in his mind. Shizui, among the juniors of the Hokage, there are no outstanding people except Hitake Kakashi. If you are interested in developing in this direction, there are still some opportunities. Why don't you consider it? You should also know the conflicts between the family and the village. If you become the Hokage, these problems will be solved. Looking at Shizui, Toshiro didn't intend to give up just like that. The other party was different from him. He had no intention of developing in this direction, but Shizui was different. He was a man with ideals and ambitions. The position of Hokage was very suitable for him. His slightly upturned eyes widened, his iconic round nose wrinkled slightly, and the corners of his mouth that usually wore a smile opened unconsciously. Even his usually clear eyes now revealed shock and confusion. Why, you don't dare to think about it. Dong Shilang did not intend to stop talking. Looking at Shizui, who was already a little out of control, he continued. Hasn't your dream always been to protect everyone in the village in the name of Uchiha? To protect these, what else can better realize your ambition than the position of Hokage? The other party was different from him. He saw everything the other party had done over the years and could be called a good boy who fully understood the will of fire. Could it be that Shizui's dream over the years was just talk? Or, have you never thought about becoming a Hokage, protecting the villagers in the village, and protecting the glory of Uchiha? Shizui really didn't know how to answer Dong Shilang's question. The other party's words were completely beyond his expectations, and he was unable to recover for a moment. Chapter 377 The reason for the disappearance of Thousand Hands. Why did he look for Shizui? Knowing his experience and observing him over the years are all indispensable. But more important than these is his identity. He is not only the blood of Uchiha Kagami, but also the wife of Uchiha Kagami. His wife is from the Senju clan, which paved the way for Shizui to become Hokage. And all this has to start with the disappearance of the Senju clan. After the establishment of Konoha, the first Hokage proposed the will of fire. Dong Shilang didn't know whether the families who had just joined Konoha believed in this thing, but the guys of the Senju clan were poisoned one by one, and their tears flowed, and they all contributed their strength. Whenever there was something in the village, these guys would rush forward one by one, howling, and they couldn't be stopped even if they wanted to. The result was that before the outbreak of the First World War, most of the young and middle-aged people of the Senju clan had died, leaving only some orphans and widows. And those grown-up teenagers were no less stubborn, and they were also very stubborn on the battlefield. For example, the rope tree in the original work is the best example. There is another reason. Even if we take a step back, in the eyes of the Senju clan, the first and second generations are all from their Senju clan, and Konoha is also from their Senju clan. If they don't contribute, who will? After all, the ninja world has a feudal tradition. So, before the second generation of Hokage succeeded to the throne, there were already few males left in the Senju clan. And for this situation, the first and second generations discussed it and finally made a decision that shocked the major ninja families. That is to marry the women of the Senju clan out. On the one hand, this was out of helplessness. There were not enough adult males in the family. Even if they had polygamy, they would not be able to handle it. On the other hand, it was for the consideration of the village. At that time, those who joined Konoha were all ninja families who made a living in the land of fire. Over the years, conflicts between the various families are inevitable due to tasks or other reasons. Mutual casualties are common. Just like Uchiha and Senju, haven't they been in love and killed each other for thousands of years? Other families are not much better, and they have more or less feuds with each other. To sum it up in one sentence, who doesn't have a few rivals in the land of fire? But when Konoha was established, although everyone became a family on the surface, they still tripped each other up secretly. It's not an exaggeration to say that they smiled on the surface, but secretly said MMP. And if you want to eliminate this kind of secret struggle, It's useless to rely on the Hokage to suppress it. Things like pretending to obey but secretly disobeying are something that ordinary people will do, let alone ninjas. In the face of this situation, the solution given by the first and second generations is also quite simple and crude, that is, marriage. Since there is no way to integrate everyone verbally, then start with blood, use their senju as a bond, and let the big and small families of Konoha become a family. In this way, everyone can be regarded as related, even if the struggle between each other is inevitable. With this layer of relationship, everyone will not tear each other apart. At that time, the big and small families in Konoha, their heads, or future heads of the families, all married a bride from Senju. The Uchiha side is naturally no exception. Whether it was the first or the second Hokage, although they were on guard against the Uchiha, how could the Uchiha be left out of such a matter that everyone had a share in? Moreover, for the second Hokage, this was a good opportunity to exert influence, and he carefully selected an outstanding descendant of the Senju to marry the Uchiha Kagami. With such an identity, the pressure on Shizui to become Hokage would be much less. But Shizui was shocked by Tawashiru's remarks. He opened his mouth several times, stammered for a long time, and did not say a complete sentence. He is only a 14-year-old child now. How could he react to this situation all of a sudden? But Tawashiru was not in a hurry. He took a sip of the hot tea in the cup slowly and waited for Shizui to calm down. He was very patient. After drinking a cup of tea, Shizui exhaled a long breath of turbid air, which seemed particularly abrupt in the quiet living room. Tawashiru Sr. Shizui looked at Tawashiru across the sofa with a serious expression and spoke with a serious face. I think you think too simply. It's not that you will be recognized by everyone after becoming Hokage, but you can become Hokage after you are recognized by everyone. The reason why everyone in the family is restless is that they have never been recognized by the village, which makes them dissatisfied with the status quo. If you think that becoming Hokage can solve all this, I think it's putting the cart before the horse. Gathering his chaotic thoughts, in less than a cup of tea, Shizui organized his words and told Tawashiru his thoughts. The other party is the strongest in the family, although he has the title of instant body Shizui. Compared with this strong man who can fight against the Nine Tails, the Raikage the Eight Tails Jinchuriki, he is still far inferior. He can't help but take it seriously. Really, looking at Shizui who was staring at him with a pair of shining eyes, Tawashiru felt a little annoyed for a moment. He wanted to say, Shizui, you look at me like this, I'm panicking. At the same time, he was thinking, this kid won't awaken Kodoa Mitsukami now. As for Shizui, his heart was complicated. This guy's eye technique was really frightening. Any normal person who knew this guy's eye technique would be cautious when facing him, and at the same time, he would have to think about one question. Is everything I am doing now out of my own intention? And am I still me? This kind of thing is really no joke. Feeling uncomfortable under the other party's clear eyes, Tawashiru quickly helped himself to a cup of tea to ease his inner thoughts. Shizui, it's not that you will get everyone's recognition by becoming a Hokage, but that you can be a Hokage only when you get everyone's recognition. These words. Tawashiru lowered his eyelids while pouring tea for himself, and spoke slowly. There is a problem with this sentence itself. Facing this guy who was deeply poisoned, Tawashiru decided that he would still try to save him. It would be a pity if this guy died. The first Hokage may have won the recognition of everyone before becoming the Hokage, but the second Hokage, the third Hokage and even the fourth Hokage, did they all get the recognition of everyone? But they all became Hokage in the end, didn't they? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 378 Brainwashing Shizui. The second Hokage, the third Hokage, and even the fourth Hokage, they didn't get everyone's approval, but they still became Hokage, didn't they? Tawashiru's words were like throwing a stone into a calm lake. No, a boulder, causing Shizui's thoughts, which had just calmed down, to stir up huge waves again. He wanted to refute Tawashiru's words, but for a moment he didn't know how to refute him. He was really powerless to refute what the other party said. Did the third Hokage get everyone's approval? At the very least, they, the Uchiha, did not recognize the third Hokage, otherwise they would not have burst out such terrible remarks in the clan meeting. The fourth Hokage was no exception. As far as he knew, there were Danzo and Orochimaru, who did not recognize the fourth Hokage. There were also many people who felt that the fourth Hokage was too young and was just a puppet of the third Hokage, and therefore opposed the fourth Hokage to be the Hokage. Shizui, no one can gain the approval of everyone. At most, they can only gain the approval of most people. Seeing that his words had an effect, Tawashiru ignored Shizui's current mood and kept saying, in an organization, a minority always leads the majority. You don't need to gain the approval of everyone. I am sure that I can make you the Hokage. The Sandaime Hokage is old. How long can he live? 10 years? 15 years? Even if he dies of old age, you are not yet 30 years old, which is the golden age of your life, when the time comes, as long as you are willing. The fifth Hokage will be yours. At this point, Tawashiru no longer avoided Shizui's gaze, but stared at Shizui with his eyes as if they were real. In his opinion, the armed coup d'etat that those guys from the first branch did, or the bloodless revolution that Fugaku later did, these are all crooked ways. Since you want to be the Hokage, just shout it out openly. Can you, the Sandaime, kill me? He doesn't need to get the consent of most people, as long as he has some supporters. When the Sandaime is dead, he will have the confidence to control the selection of Hokage. Even if Jiraiya comes, so what? Tsunade has hemophobia, and this alone can sentence her to death. Even if Jiraiya wants to go in person, he can fight him back. And all this is above board. After all, Shizui has some fame and his own strength is not bad. Even if Kakashi comes, he may not be his opponent. This is a talent advantage. If you, the Hokage, can't come up with a better candidate than Shizui, he will not let anyone sit in that position even if it is vacant. When that time comes, as long as you spend some more time, let Konoha F4 spit out some of the benefits you have eaten in your stomach, and use it to appease the other part of the opposition, as well as those who have been suppressed by the Hokage. Isn't the position of Hokage stable? What? Some people can't accept the proposal just now? Looking at Shizui with a blank look, Tawashiru didn't know how much effect his words could have. Shizui, you have to know that this is the truth. Those polite words are just for young people like you to listen to, so that you have a goal to look forward to. Senior Tawashiru, Shizui opened his mouth and wondered if he was under a genjutsu. Otherwise, how could he listen to Tawashiru's rebellious words? Shizui, we still have time. You can still observe Konoha and the Hokage with your own eyes. Although the Sandaime Hokage is old, he can still hold on for more than 10 years. You still have time to understand everything. It is better to influence Shizui slowly, so as not to use too much force at once and have the opposite effect, which is not good. But, Shizui, you have to be careful of someone. Seeing that Tawashiru did not continue to be aggressive, Shizui breathed a sigh of relief. If the other party said something that subverted his cognition again, he didn't know whether he would listen or not. Be careful of someone? I don't know who the senior is talking about. He didn't have any enemies in Konoha or in his family. Could it be Shimura Danzo? Shizui, you have to be careful of this person. Elder Danzo. When Shizui heard that Tawashiru didn't say the name of the Sandaime Hokage, he put down his worries. Just now, he thought Tawashiru was going to say the Sandaime, and he was very nervous. I know about Elder Danzo, but he shouldn't do anything bad to me. He knew Danzo, although his methods were not so fair. He shouldn't be a threat to him. I suspect that under the bandage on his right eye is an Uchiha Sharingan. And, looking at Shizui who was shocked by the news, Tawashiru continued, and he should have mastered the family's forbidden technique, Izanagi. If you come into contact with him, be careful of his ambush. Izanagi. Looking at Shizui's unbelievable expression, Tawashiru nodded affirmatively. Hearing that Danzo had his family's Sharingan in his hands, and that he might have mastered the family's forbidden technique Izanagi, even Shizui, who had been somewhat numb by Toshiro, was once again shocked by Toshiro's news. "Why, you feel unbelievable?" Seeing that the other party was still a little unconvinced, Toshiro continued to explain, "After all, the other party is the disciple of the second Hokage, and the second Hokage is a member of the Senju clan, and has been entangled with our Uchiha clan for thousands of years. It's not surprising that he knows Izanagi." Although he said so, Toshiro seriously suspected that this forbidden technique was leaked by Uchiha Kagami, or, it might have been leaked by the Senju woman who married in. However, these have all passed away, and the person involved has passed away, so he has no intention of pursuing this aspect. "I will be careful." After hearing Toshiro's explanation, although Shizui was still a little confused, he still responded to Toshiro's reminder seriously. "As for how much effect it can have, only God knows." "Okay, you're a little upset today, so go back and think about it." He had said almost everything, and it was up to Shizui to decide what to do next. "Then, I'll take my leave first." Standing up and bowing, Shizui's movements were not as perfect as usual, but rather a little flustered, and he even knocked over the teacup in front of him. However, Toshiro didn't pay much attention to this. "You're still too young." Chapter 379 Gaara. A figure walked out of the Japanese-style building of Toshiro's house. He seemed to have just woken up from a dream and was a little lost. It was Uchiha Shizui. His steps were slow and heavy, as if he was carrying all his confusion and bewilderment. The figure was looming in the bright spring sunshine, forming a sharp contrast with the surrounding scenery. Shizui's heart was full of confusion, and it seemed that a subversive storm was brewing deep in his heart. He looked up at the sky, and clouds were floating slowly. His sight moved down, and there were 4 old-fashioned and solemn rock carvings. Those stone statues stood silently in place, quietly gazing at Konoha under the mountain, as if telling him some story he could not understand. His eyes fell on the surrounding buildings, and those exquisite Japanese-style buildings seemed to whisper to him, telling him some possibilities he had never thought of. His heart was beating painfully, and his thoughts were spinning wildly. He tried to understand everything Toshiro said, and also tried to sort out his chaotic thoughts. He shook his head and broke free from his chaotic thoughts, but the subversion of his deep-rooted ideas seemed to bring a powerful force that made him a little breathless. Shizui took a deep breath. The air was filled with the breath of spring, new green leaves, blooming flowers, fresh soil. He closed his eyes and let the feeling penetrate into the depths of his soul. He needed time to digest all this and understand what Toshiro said. His steps did not stop, and he continued to move forward, moving towards an unknown future. His figure looked even more lonely and confused in the sun, like a traveler abandoned by the world, looking for his own direction. The Japanese-style building stood there quietly, as if bidding him farewell, and as if looking forward to his future changes. On the other side, Toshiro looked at the distraught Shizui without any guilt. He warned Uchiha Fugaku and changed Shizui's mind. These were all necessary preparations before he left Konoha, and they were all within his plan. Otherwise, if he came back from a trip and found that his house had been robbed, he would feel annoyed just thinking about it. As for whether his words would have any unexpected effect, he didn't know. The Uchiha's thoughts were just so confusing. The next morning, Dong Shilang traveled light and left Konoha. He had said goodbye to Sister Mika and his uncle last night, and comforted Chi. As for the Hokage, it had been settled before. After receiving his application for a long journey, the third Hokage approved it very happily. Walking in the territory of the Land of Fire, he casually sent away those small fish who might have been commissioned by someone and came to test him. Dong Shilang was in a very good mood. After being reborn in this world for so many years, he finally no longer had to worry about the tragic fate that might come to him. He could enjoy the beautiful scenery of mountains and rivers, fine wine and food in this two-dimensional world, and of course, there were all kinds of two-dimensional ladies with different styles. He was a little excited just thinking about it. Half a year later, Do you really know where my mother is? She really didn't leave me?" A little red-haired kid looked at the stranger in front of him and began to ask questions endlessly. Even his voice became a little hoarse because of being too excited. Of course, the question was asked by a little kid of 4 or 5 years old, and the one who answered him was a tall young man with long hair tied into a ponytail. "Your mother's name is Kara, and you call me Gara." "I'm right." "Right." Looking at the kid with serious dark circles under his eyes, Toshiro had to use his trump card. Although the other party was young, he had a good sense of prevention. At the same time, he had to sigh that the seal of the Sand Village was really rough and the means were really cruel. Let a kid of this age be harassed by Shukaku day and night, even if he was the most talented child, the possibility of not going berserk was almost zero. Going crazy was the most normal result. "How do you know me and my mother's name? Since you know this, tell me where my mother is now." As he spoke, Gara's expression gradually became uncontrollable, as if he was experiencing something terrifying, and his expression became distorted because of the mental pain he suffered. "Be quiet." Seeing Gara's expression change, Toshiro shouted at Gara, who was a little out of control. Gara, who had a painful expression just now, suddenly froze for a moment, and the whole person became a little dazed. "Did you make it quiet down?" Gara saw that after the other party said quiet, a red light flashed in his eyes, and then the monster in his body that always clamored to take over his body and kill everyone, it actually quieted down. "Its name is Shukaku." Touching Gara's red hair, Toshiro told him Shukaku's name. As for making Shukaku fall asleep just now, it was very simple for him now. It will accompany you for the rest of your life. You have to try to get along with it. Compared to Naruto, the tragic experience of this little guy seemed even more tragic. His own father wanted to kill him, which was not much better than Naruto's orphanage. After wandering in and around the Land of Fire for almost half a year, and fully appreciating the various customs of various countries, Dong Shilang finally remembered that he still had things to do. Reluctantly, he started the first stop of his tailed beast chakra collection plan, which was the Land of Wind. He found Gara, who was still a little kid, get along well with it, but Gara wanted to say that the monster was too scary and he didn't want to see it for a day, but he was too excited at the moment and didn't know where to start. Mom knows Gara's current situation, so she has been with Gara for so many years. Looking at this little kid who was a little emotional and about to cry, Dong Shilang comforted him a little. "You mean my mother has always been by my side? How is that possible? Why have I never seen her?" A kid of this age was immediately distracted when he heard about his mother. With a puzzled look, Gara looked around himself, then he turned back to look at Toshiro, as if he wanted him to give him an explanation. Chapter 380. It's all the first generation's fault. He looked up at an acquaintance in the distance. Toshiro simply ignored him, picked up a small stone from the ground, and threw it at Gara's head. As for Yoshimaru, who was responsible for taking care of Gara in the distance, his level was really average. In his eyes, Gara was still playing in the courtyard beside him. As the stone approached, a handful of yellow-brown sand suddenly appeared above Gara's head, blocking the small stone for him. Gara looked up at Toshiro with some confusion about Toshiro's actions. Wasn't the sand around him always like this? However, the change in the other's eyes made him exclaim, "So beautiful!" Looking up at the pattern in Toshiro's eyes, Gara couldn't help but be a little dazed. The other's eyes were really beautiful and attractive. This is really an incredible mother's love. Through his kaleidoscope, Toshiro clearly saw that in the yellow sand that suddenly appeared, a very high-quality chakra was attached to it. As the danger disappeared, it quietly returned to Gara's body. Increasing his pupil power, Toshiro could even see a vague consciousness from these chakras. This consciousness seemed to have lost itself, and could only mechanically protect its poor child according to its wishes before death. It seems to be a combination of some special secret technique and its own will. After carefully looking at the Mizuno on Gara's body, Toshiro pointed at the sand scattered on the ground and asked Gara, "Why do you think these sands protect you?" "These sands that protect you don't even need you to control them. They will protect your safety. Haven't you ever been surprised? What's more, it will go against your will and stop you from hurting yourself when you want to commit suicide." "You mean, These sands that have been protecting me. Are they like this because of my mother? Gaara is a very smart child. With Tawashiro's only suggestion, he figured out the key. These sands are obviously not under his control, and they have been protecting him. Combined with the attitude of the monster and his body towards him, it is obviously not its handiwork. All these years, has it been my mother who has been protecting me? When Gaara thought of this, he stared at the sand on the ground and stood there motionless. So, my mother has always been by my side. Gaara stared at the sand on the ground for a while and muttered to himself almost in a dream. Then he squatted on the ground, hugged his head and started crying. TSK. It's all the fault of the first generation. Although the first generation Hokage created the system of one country and one village, he was also very kind and had no intention of hurting others. However, he was worried that the big countries would fight, so he captured the tailed beasts and distributed them to the big countries to prevent them from fighting. He was really confused by the practice. What's the point of doing this? The First, Second, and Third Ninja World Wars were fought, right? If it were him, he would never do this. He understood that he didn't put all the tailed beasts in his hands, but just put them aside. In this way, the intensity of the battle between their ninjas might be lower. As for why he didn't put all the tailed beasts in his own hands, Tawashiro thought that the Satsudame should have considered it this way. Jinchuriki are time bombs. If 9 Jinchuriki gather together and go berserk, it will be a scene of chaos. If something goes wrong, there will be a chain reaction. He dare not even think about this scene, but this is not the reason why he distributed the tailed beasts equally. It made each Jinchuriki miserable. Once the tailed beasts with a history of going berserk are sealed again, the village leaders will conduct some stability tests on them. They want to see if the emotions or other changes of these new Jinchuriki will affect the effect of the seal. This is also the reason why Gaara and Naruto in the original work had such a miserable childhood, but the village leaders still turned a blind eye to it, and even indulged it a little. Gaara, how about we make a deal? Seeing that Gaara's emotions were almost vented, Tawashiro looked at Gaara with tears in his eyes and said, "Trade?" Gaara, who was less than 5 years old, could already understand what a deal meant, but was there anything on him that was worth the other party's conspiracy? Yes, deal. You probably can't sleep peacefully. I'll help you solve this problem, but you have to do me a favor. Really? Can you really let me sleep normally? When Gaara heard that Tawashiro could let him sleep peacefully, he stared at Tawashiro with a pair of red eyes, looking very surprised. He needed sleep so much. Although it can't be said that he can't sleep at all. After all, if a person can't sleep for years, even if he has chakra, he can't avoid GG. But the sleep time is very short, and he can't sleep too deeply, otherwise, there is a risk of losing control at any time. Of course, but this requires your cooperation. He has several ways to let Gaara sleep normally. However, considering that Shukaku is also an expert in sealing techniques, he thinks it is better to use the power of the Sharingan to solve this problem. Okay, as long as you can let me sleep normally, I can promise you anything. A person who suffers from insomnia for many years, or can't sleep normally for many years, really desires sleep more than ordinary things. Gaara agreed to the deal with Tawashiro without hesitation, and he didn't even ask what he needed to take out to trade with the other party. After all, he had nothing except the monster in his body. Really? Agreed so readily. Looking at the bloodshot eyes of the other party, which had become thicker because of crying just now, Tawashiro was not surprised. The eyes of this guy were not as black and white as those of ordinary children. Compared with those authors who stayed up late to write manuscripts in their previous lives, he was simply not in the same dimension. Look into my eyes. After gently patting Gaara's head, Tawashiro squatted down, opened his Meixiang Sharingan, and stared closely into Gaara's eyes. The other party was a Jinchuriki. If he added another seal on top of his seal, it would not be effective. If the Sand Ninja discovered this situation, it would be estimated that the ending of this little guy would be tragic. He could only try to help the other party with his eyes, which was also a chance for this little guy to dream. Chapter 381 Hint. Just when Tawashiro and Gaara were dealing, in a hidden building in the Sand Village, a whirlwind with a diameter of less than half a meter blew in from the open door. While bringing up a slight dust, a slender figure walked out of the whirlwind. "Saki, is this the place you arranged? You are really careful." As soon as she appeared, a crisp female voice sounded, and then she began to look around. "This is the interior of the Sand Village, and it is also a place close to the Kazekage's office. The location is quite good. What's more rare is that you can actually see every move of the Kazekage building not far away through the window of this house. This time our cooperation is considered to be a mutual benefit. How are your preparations?" Facing Saki, who had dealt with her once before, Meixiang was not polite at all. As soon as she spoke, her usual arrogant attitude was revealed at a glance, and she looked like she was facing a subordinate. "Meixiang, you are still the same as always, without any change. We are almost ready here, just wait until nightfall, and then we will act according to the plan." Looking at Meixiang standing by the window, Saki narrowed his eyes. Even though this woman suffered such a big loss, she still had such an arrogant attitude. "It's true." He winked at his companion. The senior ninja named Madu touched his ninjutsu bag, blinked at Saki, and then showed a meaningful smile. "Meixiang, assassinating the Kazekage is not a trivial matter after all. We still have to be cautious. I wonder if there is anything else you need to prepare." Seeing that Meixiang had been staring at the Kazekage building in the distance since entering the house, Saki was worried that the other party would waver at this critical moment, so he took out the plan for tonight to distract the other party. This kind of simple-minded ninja, after being backstabbed, often makes some unexpected moves. For example, Meixiang, after being betrayed, actually began to look for these mountains that they had previously disdained to cooperate with, and to assassinate Luosha together. This was really surprising. "Who is this child?" Seeing that Meixiang did not move for a long time, Shagui came to Meixiang's side, intending to urge him to get to the point quickly. However, following Meixiang's sight, he saw a short-haired little girl wearing a sand ninja forehead protector walking into the Kazekage building. If I remember correctly, this one should be Meixiang's subordinate in the village. "What a cute child. Why didn't you visit your disciples when you came back this time?" Just by looking at the child's back, Shagui recognized the identity of the person just now. If he remembered correctly, the child should be called Maki. "No need. I am not a hero of the Sand Ninja Village now. I am just a rebel ninja. There is no need to see these insignificant people again." Reluctantly retracting his gaze, Meixiang focused his attention on tonight's actions. "Leave the assassination of Luosha to me, but you need to stabilize the situation afterwards." "Are you sure you can do this?" Ever since she was betrayed, she has been holding her breath, and she couldn't swallow it no matter how she thought about it, especially after hearing that she had been identified as a traitor by Luosha. She was even more determined to take revenge. However, although she wanted revenge, the ordinary people in the village and some middle and lower level ninjas were innocent. After thinking it over, she made up her mind and contacted Shaggy, who had contacted before. "The people behind the other party, plus their allies, will have no problem stabilizing the situation after Luosha's death. Don't worry, the power behind us is beyond your imagination. As long as Luosha dies, we can start to restore the reputation of Meixiang's Jonin. Then you can visit your disciples openly." Especially on the word Jonin, Shaggy emphasized the tone. This was after Meixiang found them and proposed cooperation, and their leader agreed to the other party very readily. Of course, this was after the other party killed Luosha. "Is that so? That's great." Hearing the other party's words, Meixiang turned around and his expression became a little serious. It seemed that he was very concerned about restoring his reputation. At this time, Toshiro was completely unaware of all this. He was holding a tissue in his hand, constantly wiping the blood from the corners of his eyes. "I didn't expect that it would take so much pupil power to plant a long-term hint on Shukaku. Fortunately, my eyes have been strengthened. Otherwise it would be terrible." After dropping a few drops of green fluorescent eye drops into his eyes, Toshiro felt that his eyes felt better. Are you okay?" Guard just felt that he was stunned for a while, and then he saw blood dripping from the other person's eyes, and he was a little at a loss for a moment. "It's okay." After answering Gaara's concern casually, Toshiro threw a colorful gem pendant to Gaara. "Take it. Whenever you want to have a good sleep, take this thing out and shake it in front of your eyes. the shukaku in your body will fall into a deep sleep and will no longer come to you to snatch control of your body when you are asleep. He spent a lot of money this time, using his Meixiang sharing to give shukaku a psychological hint. Now, whenever the other party sees this shaking gem pendant, he will fall into a sleep for several hours. Really? Gaara took the pendant thrown by Toshiro, looked at the colorful light emanating from it, and held it tightly in his hand. Of course, but everything has a limit. The effect of this pendant will continue to weaken with the passage of time and the increase in the number of times you use it. Until the end, you can only face Shukaku's harassment by yourself. There is no way around it. Any hint has a limit. Even his Meixiang, which is close to the eternal eye, is no exception. If Gaara uses it slowly, this pendant will lose its effect when Gaara is in his teens at most. If the other party uses it frequently, it is estimated that it will be useless before he is 10 years old. Thank you. When he said this, Gaara's voice was no longer hoarse at the beginning, and seemed to become more lively. Even his face, which had turned pale due to long-term insomnia, became a little rosy. I don't know if it was because he knew that his mother was always by his side, or because he could sleep well. Chapter 382 The Boss Lady. Ah, don't thank me so quickly. You have to bear with it later, it will be a little uncomfortable. After patting the kid's head again, Toshiro prepared to start extracting some of Shukaku's chakra. Originally, he didn't need to go through so much trouble. He could just use an illusion to control Shukaku and Gaara together, and then directly extract Shukaku's chakra from the other party. Since he got the Uzumaki clan seal scroll, although he couldn't perform most of the blood seals, but some of the concepts related to the seal technique also benefited him a lot. Now he can extract some of the tailed beast's chakra without breaking the seal. But looking at Gaara's deep dark circles, he somehow thought of the experience of staying up all night in his previous life. He couldn't help but give him a little help. Okay. Hearing Toshiro's words, Gaara didn't ask any more questions, just replied with a good answer, and then closed his eyes. He had realized that, except for the monster in his body, there was nothing on him that was worth the other party's effort. He didn't mind what the other party did to the monster. It would be best to get it out of his body. What a well-behaved child. It should be said that suffering did make this child strong to a certain extent, but this strength was too cruel. Well, these have nothing to do with me. The sunset in the distance gradually sank, leaving a golden afterglow. After getting a portion of Shukaku's chakra from Gaara, Dong Shilang began to look for a hotel to stay. On both sides of the street, rows of low houses were scattered in an orderly manner. Each house was covered with palm leaves that are common in the desert, exuding a strong desert atmosphere. The air was filled with the smell of sand and dust. A small shop in the corner attracted his attention. The shop was decorated very simply and cleanly, with a few low tables and cushions, and some handmade products and decorations hanging on the wall. The owner was a beautiful woman with deep eyes and tanned skin. She was slim and slender, like a flower in the desert. She was wearing a long dress with light colors and golden tassels on the hem, which made her look like a bright spot in the desert. Her long hair was carefully braided into a long braid that reached her waist. Her fingers were slender and flexible, and she must be good at playing various musical instruments. Unfortunately, she was wearing a veil, so her true face could not be seen clearly. Dong Shilang's arrival attracted the attention of the store owner, who greeted him warmly. Welcome, guest from afar. Here, you will taste the most authentic barbecue from the Kingdom of Wind, and you can also experience the unique sand bath in the desert. Oh, barbecue with the characteristics of the Kingdom of Wind, and sand bath. Yes, you can have this. Dong Shilang's current dress was completely like a merchant from the Kingdom of Wind, and he did not arouse any suspicion from the other party at all. Thank you for your hospitality. I look forward to your delicious food. Without any hesitation, Dong Shilang stepped directly into the small store. The decoration inside the store was full of desert characteristics, with gorgeous golden tassel curtains, hand-painted desert landscape paintings, and pottery jars and tapestries of various shapes. Together, they create an environment that is both desert style and clean and tidy. Dong Shilang took the menu handed over by the female owner, chose a roasted whole lamb with the characteristics of the Wind Country, and a roasted chicken, and waited quietly. The customer's appetite is really big. There is nothing I can do about it. When I see such a beautiful scenery, I can't help but have a big appetite. All this is still the fault of the boss lady. You must compensate me well when the time comes. As he said this, Dong Shilang showed a bright smile to the other party. With a slight smile, the owner did not take Dong Shilang's joke seriously and began to prepare dinner for him. Skillfully skewered some fresh vegetables, lambs and sand chickens on iron skewers, and then grilled them on charcoal. As time passed, 2 exquisite plates, one large and one small, were brought to Dong Shilang, and the aroma of meat was immediately overflowing, making people salivate. The roasted whole lamb with the characteristics of the Wind Country is a very popular barbecue dish. Remove the head and feet of a fat lamb, hollow out the internal organs, stuff it with rice, raisins, almonds, olives, pine nuts and other dried fruits and seasonings, and then roast it over a high fire. The roasted whole lamb is tender and juicy, and the addition of rice and dried fruits makes it have a richer taste. Roasted sand chicken is also a very popular dish in the Kingdom of Wind. The chicken is first washed, then coated with the seasonings of the Kingdom of Wind, and roasted on charcoal. While roasting and coating with seasonings, the roasted chicken is tender, delicious and juicy. Oh, great! The owner's craftsmanship is really top-notch. Even the chefs hired by those noble families don't have the skills of the boss lady. Sitting on the cushion, Dong Shilang stuffed the roasted juicy lamb into his mouth, and while feasting on it, he couldn't help but praise the boss lady's craftsmanship. As soon as the lamb in his mouth was swallowed, Dong Shilang couldn't wait to stuff a fat and juicy chicken wing into his mouth. I just don't know who will have this blessing in the future. It's a pity that I can enjoy the craftsmanship of the boss lady every day. This is the good thing about this world. There are no foods with all kinds of strange things added, and there are no fruits that are produced by various fertilizers. What's more perfect is that these foods that have been soaked in natural energy for a long time can always bring him a different taste experience. The guests are really overpraising. I think it's because I haven't eaten well for a long time that I have this feeling. The boss lady was very happy that the food she carefully prepared was praised by the guests. Since the guests like it, I am relieved. Please enjoy it slowly. I will go to prepare accommodation and sand bath for the guests first. After dinner, Dong Shilang leaned on the soft sofa cushions and admired the beautiful desert scenery. The sand dunes in the distance were shining with golden light under the afterglow of the setting sun, and the dry air and hot wind were all an alternative experience. A figure came over gracefully and poured him a cup of hot tea. This is our special desert tea. Please try it and see if it suits your taste. Dong Shilang took the teacup and a strong tea aroma came to his nose. He took a sip and the tea was mellow and full of aftertaste. He couldn't help but exclaimed, "The tea in the desert is really unique." Like it, the proprietress smiled and said, "In the desert, we need to learn to cherish and be grateful for everything we have." Chapter 383 Meet again. In the backyard of an inn in the sand village, the yellow sand, which had been exposed to the sun for a whole day, was emitting a scorching temperature. The afterglow of the setting sun also made the place burst out with the last heat of the day. In this place specially opened up for those travelers from afar to take a sand bath, a head emerged from the golden yellow sand. This kind of sand bath in the Kingdom of Wind is really a different experience. Burying the whole body in the scorching yellow sand, Dong Shilang felt that this kind of thing could be done a few times. As for being good for the body, he felt that it was useless, but it was still effective to relax his mind and relieve his accumulated fatigue. Boss lady. What is this? Dong Shilang looked at the wooden tray in his hand with some oil and bottles and jars on it, and he felt a little strange. But he soon thought of something, and his expression became playful. Great. The boss lady is not only good at grilling meat, but also makes tea with a unique fragrance. She is also first-rate in this area. Or should I say super first-rate? Hateful. Even the customers have time to joke around. So the boss lady's name is Emika? Yeah, so cool. He was originally planning to compliment the boss lady's name, but before Dong Shilang could finish his words, he was interrupted by the boss lady's next move. Snap, snap, snap. Just as Dong Shilang hummed in comfort, Emika seemed to increase her movements. Are you comfortable? Yeah, Emika's skills are really amazing. The other party's massage skills are really professional. Even when slapping, whether it is the pressure or the final slap, it is just right. Bang! A dull sound came, followed by the sound of a heavy object falling to the ground. Ah! There is. Emika, who was still busy with Dong Shilang, had not yet seen who the figure that suddenly appeared in front of her was, and was ready to shout for help so that the patrol personnel who might be outside would know the abnormality here. Swish! Before Emika could scream, the figure that suddenly appeared had already covered her mouth. Then he looked at Dong Shilang, who was lying on a massage lounge chair with a bad face. You are really a pervert. Yi Kang never thought that he would meet this bastard again in the sand village. I said I just tried the sand bath, and then the boss lady saw that I was young and rich, so she came to give me a massage. Do you believe it? Gently moving the boss lady away from him, Dong Shilang looked at Yi Kang with a rogue face. He didn't expect that he and the other party would be in such a state when they met again. What do you think? Yi Kang rolled his eyes beautifully, and he would never believe the other party's nonsense. These two shameless guys were actually having a hot fight on the ground, and they told him that it was just a simple massage, which was simply nonsense. Why would you wear so little for a massage? This time Dong Shilang really didn't know how to explain it. He was wearing almost nothing except a pair of pants. That was not all. The proprietress seemed to be unable to bear the heat of the evening and was very cool. Just now, she was riding on Tawashiru's back. He could feel the smooth skin on his legs and the tempting temperature. But these are all normal. To explain why Yi Kang suddenly appeared here, we have to start from her assassination of the fourth-generation Kazekage Raza in the evening. Just now, Yi Kang, who was well prepared, changed into the clothes of ordinary residents of the sand village. After disguising himself, he and the other two sand ninjas went to the Kazekage building together. They chose a very good time. This time point happened to be the time when most of the government officials in the Kazekage building were off work. The Kazekage building would become empty. In addition to the staff on duty, there were only the Kazekage and his guards. Originally, they planned to assassinate the Kazekage directly at his home, but considering that his child was a one-tailed Jinchuriki, in order to prevent any accidents, they decided to do it before the Kazekage returned home. In order to facilitate the action and avoid causing too much noise, Shaggy and his companions were responsible for stopping the guards of the Kazekage, while Yi Kang was responsible for killing the Kazekage. The whole process was very smooth. Facing Yi Kang, who suddenly took action, Luo Sha could not react at all, and all his guards were stopped by Yi Kang's accomplices. But what was not so harmonious was that after the assassination was successful, Shaggy and Madhu, the two bastards, did not start to control the situation as planned. Instead, they launched a sneak attack on Yi Kang. Fortunately, after experiencing the last betrayal, Yi Kang became more careful and narrowly avoided the opponent's sneak attack. Obviously, her collaborators were planning to kill and silence her. After a thrilling but quiet battle, Yi Kang escaped and began to avoid the opponent's pursuit, but she didn't expect that she would run into Tawashiru just after getting rid of the pursuers and escaping to the edge of the sand village. And the other party's current appearance made her a little angry. You should take care of your wound first. Pointing at the kunai stuck in the other person's body, Dong Shilang signaled her to take care of the wound first. Although the relationship between him and Yi Kang was somewhat ambiguous, it was not to the extent that he had to explain everything to her. HMPH Yi Kang snorted coldly to express his dissatisfaction. He ignored Dong Shilang and the woman whose mouth was covered by her. It seems to be poisonous. Although he did not touch it, with Dong Shilang's current sense of smell, he only slightly moved his nose and judged that the kunai on the other person was coated with poison. But there is nothing strange about this. These are the basic operations of the sand ninja. Ding dang. Hearing Dong Shilang's caring words, Yi Kang somehow felt a nameless fire rising up. He did not even take the action of carefully checking these kunai, and directly threw them on the ground. He did not even care about what kind of poison was quenched on them. Chapter 384 Assassination. Hey, what did you do? Did you kill Luo Sha directly? Looking at Yi Kang, who was still treating her wounds calmly, Dong Shilang became anxious for her. It seemed that another group of pursuers came. Needless to say, these people also came to search for Yi Kang's whereabouts. How about you hide first, I'll help you cover. Looking at the boss lady who kept her mouth shut, the kunai thrown on the ground by the other party, and the pursuers who were getting closer and closer outside, Dong Shilang had to admit that this woman was really calm. She didn't look nervous at all. What are you doing in the sand village? Compared to Dong Shilang's concern for the pursuers outside, Yi Kang's concern was obviously not in this aspect. Instead, he looked at Dong Shilang with a vigilant look. With your strength, it is impossible for you to wander around the sand village for no reason. Tell me, what is your purpose? He simply cleaned up his injuries, then took a few pills, and then injected himself with a tube of injections. Yi Kang held a kunai in each hand, aiming at Toshiro. It was already this time. Why did he come to the sand village? What does it have to do with you, a traitor? Although he thought so in his heart, Toshiro did not say it out loud. This woman was obviously the type who loved the village. Travel, Toshiro said to Yi Kang casually, wondering if those people outside were here to search for Yi Kang. Otherwise, she would not have the time to interrogate him here. What is your relationship with this woman? Yi Kang obviously did not believe Toshiro's explanation, but he did not continue to dwell on this question, but began to ask about his relationship with the store owner. We are just the relationship between a boss and a customer. He did not intend to explain more to the other party, but looking at the kunai in her hand, Toshiro frowned. Was this woman a little too nosy? If there were not a large group of sand ninjas outside, his identity would not be exposed, and he must let her know how powerful he was. The owner and the customer? Yi Kang Meixiang didn't believe Toshiro's explanation, and his face became even uglier. The ambiguous posture of the two people just now, and the cool clothes on the woman. Just think about it. You can know that the relationship between the two is not simple. Believe it or not, I just came here to stay this afternoon, but I have to admit that the women in the sand village are not all as arrogant as you. There are also such passionate women. Not long after Yi Kang entered the hotel, in the Kazakage building, Saki and Madu, who had just attacked Yi Kang, were now busy. Has Yi Kang not been caught yet? Send more people. Yi Kang is the best scapegoat. We must not let her run away. Let's get our people into action and control the Anbu, the upper class, and the patrol and guard forces in the village. Also, send people to watch the Jinchuriki. Don't let the other party have any accidents. He sent out ninjas one by one. These people were the adults behind him, and the subordinates of his allies. With these people, plus Yi Kang as a scapegoat, they controlled the key departments in the village. Luosha will soon become a thing of the past. At that time, he will be able to go further, and with the leadership of the adults behind him, the sand village will no longer have to rely on Konoha like it does now. You really exceeded my expectations, Shagui. Just when Shagui followed the original plan and let people start to control the situation, while enjoying his own and the village's future, a voice that he was very familiar with sounded from behind him. How is it possible? Haven't you been killed by Yi Kang? He turned his head mechanically and looked at the man who suddenly appeared. Shagui's face was pale and full of disbelief. The body is still here. How could you still be alive? As he spoke, Shagui turned his head and looked at a shriveled body in the distance. The other party, like Luosha, was also wearing a robe representing the identity of the Kazakage, but because he was hit by Yi Kang's burning release, it became a little shriveled. It's just a substitute. There's nothing strange about it. Luosha didn't have a good face at all for the two guys who plotted to assassinate him. These two people plotted to assassinate the Kazakage. Catch them both. If they dare to resist, kill them on the spot and leave their heads. He directly ordered the Anbu who followed behind him to capture the two people. Luosha didn't feel lucky to have escaped, but his face became even uglier. Today's assassination was very unusual. These two people were just pawns and were not worth mentioning at all. Lord Kazakage, these two people have been controlled. Next, a figure with a white cloth wrapped around his head, wearing a sand ninja combat uniform, and painted on his face half knelt in front of him, asking for instructions on the next step. Control those who have made unusual movements tonight. and slowly identify the rebels among them, if there are any who do not obey orders. At this point, Luosha hesitated for a moment, and then said, "Kill them on the spot." There were too many people who jumped out this time, not counting those who just jumped out from various departments, and there were also many people who just went to chase Yi Kang. Those leaders among them were fine, and they would be dead if they died, but there were too many blindly following guys. For the sake of the stability of the village, it is not appropriate to implicate too many people. Yes, after receiving the order from the Kazekage, when the sand ninja was about to leave, Luosha called him, Maki. After calling him, Luosha took out a list and handed it to him without saying anything. Silently taking the slight list that seemed to be blown away by a breeze, Maki's expression was more serious than ever. Although Fenying didn't say anything, when he saw the first name on the list, he knew what Fenying meant. He couldn't help but feel heavy-hearted. Ignoring the expressions of his subordinates, Luosha put on Fenying's hat after saying this, hiding his whole face behind the hat curtain. He even wrapped his whole face with a white veil and slowly walked towards his office. "I'm leaving." Maki twitched his lips slightly and didn't comment on the list Luosha gave him. He knew that tonight was just the beginning, and those who would die later would only be the subordinates of those people. When Fenying started to settle accounts with them in the next period of time, if he was not careful, he and himself might die. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 385. Maki, you really don't want to hide? The door of the small shop has been knocked. If nothing unexpected happens, there should be a bang on the door. Then a large group of sand ninjas filed in. While reminding Yi Kang on the opposite side, Toshiro was not idle either, and began to look for his clothes. He was only wearing a pair of shorts because of the sand bath and massage he had just had. What would it be like if a fight broke out later? Ding ding dang dang. When Toshiro had just put on his clothes and was ready to deal with these sand ninjas, a strange sound of fighting came from the door. Along with it, there were loud questions and doubts. "Who are you? Why are you attacking us?" This was not only a question from the attacked, but also a question from Toshiro. He was still wondering, are the behaviors of the sand ninjas in the sand village so confusing? Nothing happened on his side, and the sand ninjas started fighting among themselves. Lord Kazekage has personally ordered that all ninjas who have come out without permission should surrender immediately. If they disobey, they will be killed on the spot. With his good hearing, Toshiro could tell that the voice came from a middle-aged man, who was obviously the leader of the group of sand ninjas that appeared later. "Nonsense. The Kazekage has already." "Don't listen to him. This guy is trying to fish in troubled waters." He saw the body of the Kazekage with his own eyes. Where did these guys who suddenly appeared get the order from the Kazekage? It was simply nonsense. "Stubborn. Don't hold back. Those who resist will be killed on the spot." The man gave the order very decisively. He had a lot of things to do tonight, so he didn't have time to waste on these people. If the other party knew what was good for him, it would not be impossible to spare their lives. Since they were so stubborn, he had no reason to hesitate. You guys." As the negotiation failed, the sound of fighting in front became obviously more intense, and there was a tendency to slowly spread from the front yard to here. "Why don't we find a place to hide first?" Seeing that the attack was coming from the front, Dong Shilang had no choice. It was not enough that these sand ninjas were crazy, but there was also this woman named Yi Kang. What did she mean by being so unhurried? He was a little confused about what was going on today. Seeing this, Yi Kang did not insist anymore. After cleaning up the traces on the ground, he took the proprietress and hid in a corner. Looking at the appearance, those who didn't know would think that they were ordinary civilians affected by the ninja battle. Even the proprietress acted very realistically. Women are born actors. After complaining about Yi Kang's fickleness, Dong Shilang did not stop his actions. He came to the two of them and pretended to be passers-by together. "Get out of the way." As Dong Shilang approached, Yi Kang seemed to have touched the wound on his body, and his whole body shook uncontrollably. Then he said in a low voice with a dark face, "Don't be so loud, the people outside are about to come in." Of course, he would not be scared by Yi Kang's words. Instead of moving away, he became more aggressive and moved closer to Yi Kang. When the fighting sand ninja was about to come in, he directly reached out and took Yi Kang into his arms. Yi Kang was about to turn hostile, but just before she turned hostile, two figures stumbled and fled into the backyard where they were. Yi Kang's words were blocked in his throat. "Don't try to resist anymore. Master Kazekage has seen through your conspiracy. If you surrender, the Kazekage might give you a way out because you are all sand ninjas." Following the two sand ninjas came in several sand ninjas dressed as Anbu, and the leader was Maki, a subordinate trusted by the Kazekage. It seemed that considering that both parties were sand ninjas, or perhaps he wanted to save more vitality for the village, Maki looked at the two sand ninjas who were desperate and made a final effort. "Don't lie to us. We, the opposition, will only face death if we surrender. Luosha will not let us go. It's better to kill one at a time, so that we won't suffer any loss." As if to show his determination, one of the sand ninjas took out a large stack of detonating tags from his ninja bag. After saying this, Dong Shilang and Yi Kang frowned at the side. The explosion was real. With such a large stack of detonating tags exploding at the same time, they still wanted to hide aside and pretend to be passers-by, which was obviously impossible. "Calm down." Seeing this scene, the Anbu who faced these sand ninjas became a little cautious, especially Maki. His face was twitching with anger. He shouldn't have given these people a chance to repent. Both the border of the land of water and the border of the land of earth are in urgent need of manpower. Although you are the opposition, you are not the core leader. That guy has just been killed by us. The Wind Shadow will give you a chance to atone for your sins. Although these guys are strong on the outside but weak on the inside, if they are not given a hope of survival, they may really die together with them. As for whether the Wind Shadow will give these guys a chance at that time, it depends on Luosha's mood. Even if that's the case, it's just a matter of dying sooner or later. With our identities, if we go to the front line, we will definitely perform the most dangerous tasks. It won't be long before we die. One of the sand ninjas, seeing that things were turning around, hesitated for a moment, then held the detonating tag in his hand again, and seemed to be planning to continue to resist. Asshole! Ignoring the three people beside him, Tawashiru, Yi Kang, Maki had a headache. If the other party acted like this, they might also have some casualties. As for Tawashiru and the others on the side, they were not even within his consideration. Ordinary people involved in ninja battles rarely have a good ending. They are either affected by ninjutsu or made to suffer by the subsequent ninjas who want to collect intelligence. Although they are from his own village and will not have any trouble later, once the detonating tag explodes, none of these people can escape. Wait. Just as Maki was about to lead his subordinates to launch a strong attack, he suddenly had an idea and turned his attention back to the murderer who was pretending to die together. "Aren't you going to consider it?" Although the mortality rate of the mission in the front line camp is very high, there is still a glimmer of hope. The guy opposite is really. He is still trying to negotiate with him at this time. He is really a talent. Chapter 386 Friends, let's go. After a lot of effort, the two sand ninjas finally surrendered. Maki didn't intend to stay here for long. He just glanced at Tawashiru and the other two, and then led his men out of the store. He had a lot of work to do tonight, so he didn't have time to care about the lives of a few civilians. "Don't let go." When Tawashiru embraced her, Yi Kang's whole body was stiff at first. If the sand ninja hadn't just appeared, she would have exploded on the spot. What made her even more angry was that later, in order to avoid being discovered by the sand ninjas, this bastard became even more aggressive and followed her closely. Now that he left, her tone immediately became cold. Snap! Seeing that this guy didn't move for a long time, Yi Kang unceremoniously opened Tawashiru's hateful arm. "You are so indifferent as always." Instead of caring about the other party's indifference, Dong Shulang asked, "I'm curious, what did you do tonight to make these sand ninjas kill each other?" This person suddenly appeared in this small hotel, followed by pursuers, and she was not in a hurry in the face of these pursuers. Later, a familiar guy appeared with the Anbu and took away all the sand ninjas who had been chasing her. "Who are you?" Just as Dong Shilang asked Yi Kang, the boss who had been pretending to be a frightened ordinary person and behaved very cooperatively stared at Yi Kang. "Yi Kang, haven't you betrayed? Why did you suddenly appear in my store?" Although the other party was now in disguise, as Yi Kang's friend, she still found clues at such a close distance. "You knew each other before?" Seeing this scene, Dong Shilang knew that the two knew each other before, otherwise the boss lady would not have recognized each other's identity so quickly. The way Yi Kang was dressed now was impossible for someone who was not familiar with him to recognize him at first sight. He only recognized him by relying on his chakra perception. Moreover, Toshiro felt that Yi Kang's action of licking his lips was too gentle. He originally thought that she was so careful because she was an ordinary person in the sand village. Come back to do something and take revenge. Revenge? Hearing these two words from Yi Kang's mouth, Emika's face changed on the spot, and she said to Yi Kang with a serious look, "Yi Kang, I know you were betrayed this time, but. At this point, Emika's face was full of entanglement, but she still organized her words and continued. "But those people. Are all high-ranking officials in the village, and we can't afford to offend them at all." After the other party got into trouble, Emika also inquired about some inside information, and she was a very smart guy. Combining the information she got, she easily analyzed the cause and effect of the matter. Although she was very angry after learning the truth, she had no good way to deal with the high-ranking officials of the entire village. "You can't kill all the high-ranking officials of the Sand Village. It's okay, I've already taken revenge." Facing the concern of his friend, Yi Kang just pulled the corner of his mouth slightly and revealed a faint smile. She was very pleased that her friend would consider her, and it was worth it for her to come to her specially. When Emika heard Yi Kang say that he had taken revenge, she was a little stuck, and the following words of exhortation were stuck into Lin and couldn't be said. At the same time, she was full of question marks. "Are you saying that everything tonight was caused by you?" Dong Shilang, who was also full of question marks, recalled the conversation between the two waves of sand ninja just now, and couldn't help asking Yi Kang. There was too little information, and he didn't know what the other party had done. Isn't this the guest today? Yi Kang. Do you know each other?" Emika followed the voice and saw Dong Shilang's face, so she looked at Dong Shilang, and then turned to look at Yi Kang. "Is this guy your new lover? The guy you found to help you get revenge?" "No." Facing his friend's puzzled look, Yi Kang denied it directly, and added a sentence. "I don't know him." "Don't say that. After all, we have been living together in an isolated place for more than half a month." Hearing Yi Kang's denial, Dong Shilang rolled his eyes. "Besides, we have been honest with each other. If you say you don't know him again, it will make me sad." "Shut up." When Yi Kang heard the words honest, his face changed drastically as if he was bitten by a snake, and he stopped Dong Shilang from continuing. "Honest?" When he heard this word, Emika became energetic, and he didn't even care about the other party's refusal to recognize him just now. In the matter of revenge, he stared with a pair of big eyes, scanning between Yi Kang and Dong Shilang. There was a flame called gossip burning in his eyes. Don't listen to his nonsense, it's just a simple dressing change. Being looked at by his good friend with such a strange look, Yi Kang couldn't stand it and hurriedly explained, but his tone was a little lacking in confidence, and he was more and more hesitant as he spoke. "Really? Just a dressing change?" Emika repeated Yi Kang's explanation in a puzzled tone, obviously not believing his explanation. If it was a simple dressing change, why would Yi Kang react so strongly? Even his words were a little hesitant. "There is an affair, not to mention me, but you. Why are you with this guy?" And, when he said this, Yi Kang didn't continue, but both Dong Shilang and Emika understood what he meant. "This young man." Emika tilted her head, looked at Dong Shilang, and then looked at Yi Kang. Her expression became a little strange, but she still answered Yi Kang's question. "I thought this guy was a spy, and I was going to knock him down and send him to the Anbu." At this point, Emika was also a little entangled. I just didn't expect that this guy seems to have a rare drug-resistant constitution. The drug I used in the barbecue before didn't seem to react to him at all. I had no choice but to do it myself. At this point, Emika rolled her eyes at Dong Shilang. The reason why the barbecue was so delicious just now was because she added a kind of drug that would make people sleepy, but she didn't expect that this guy would be fine after eating it, and he was very energetic and kept thinking about sand baths. She had to add another mixed drug to the tea and essential oils for massage to use together. Chapter 387 Emika. By the way, speaking of drugs, Emika looked in the direction of Dong Shilang. Are you okay? The drugs mixed in the seasonings used the first time were fine. They could only deal with ordinary people or ninjas with weak strength. But the second time, the drugs were mixed. Even an elephant could be knocked down. What do you think? Looking at the other party's gaze, Dong Shilang smiled slightly and looked at Emika with a playful look. He knew that the proprietress was a ninja when he saw her for the first time, but he was also skilled and bold. So he went straight into the other party's store. He wanted to see what kind of different experience a ninja-run hotel would have. Unexpectedly, the other party really gave him a surprise. When the other party served the barbecue, he found out the trick. After all, he had been studying drugs that stimulate the brain for a long time, and he had some knowledge of pharmacy. However, with his current physical condition, this kind of drug that does not hurt or itch has no effect at all. He does not need to pay special attention to it. He can ignore it directly by relying on his body metabolism. As for the mixed drug prepared by the other party for the second time, it just made him a little dizzy. Compared with this, the other party's massage technique made him more intoxicated. You all know? Seeing the expression on the other party's face, Emika knew that she was fooled by the other party, and took the opportunity to take advantage of her. But she did not lose her composure, but she was a little unhappy in her heart. By the way, my dress is so obvious, and you can tell it's wrong at a glance. Speaking of this, Dong Shilang was a little strange. There should be nothing wrong with his dress. How come this proprietress recognized that he was not a merchant at once? And you are a ninja, although your strength is not that good, but how did you open an inn? Emika's father is a merchant. She is very familiar with the merchant group. Of course you can't deceive her. After Dong Shilang asked his question, Emika's face became a little gloomy, so Yi Kang answered Dong Shilang on behalf of his companion. As for she opened an inn here, it should be because of my involvement. Sorry. As soon as he saw the other party's face, Dong Shilang knew that the other party's father should have passed away. Otherwise he would not have suddenly changed his face. It's okay. It's over. Emika accepted Dong Shilang's apology very calmly, but she didn't feel too sad. After all, this matter had been a long time ago. As for the fact that she was implicated by Yi Kang and had to withdraw from the active ninja service and could only run an inn here to make a living, she didn't even mention it. Emika, it's all my fault. If you hadn't kept asking about me, things wouldn't have turned out like this. Although the other party didn't mention it, Yi Kang still felt a little guilty. It doesn't matter. I'm not as talented as you. At best, I can only be an elite chunin. I've long wanted to quit being a ninja. This is a good opportunity. Emika didn't lie. She was averagely talented and the daughter of a merchant. She didn't have any family heritage. She was able to become an elite chunin thanks to Yi Kang's help. She was able to master a few decent wind escape ninjutsu. Otherwise, a chunin would be her limit. As for being a ninja, she yearns for the outside world more. It's just that she has been restricted from traveling recently. Otherwise, she wouldn't stay in the sand village. While Tawashiru and Yi Kang were chatting with her friends, in the office of the Kazakage, Luosha looked at the report in his hand. His face was really dark. This time, these people really spent a lot of money. Just after he was assassinated, people from all departments in the sand village jumped out one by one, either to stabilize the situation, or to take the opportunity to get promoted, and so on. Yakura, this woman, is really crazy. Thinking of the bloody storm that the sand village was about to experience, Luosha couldn't help but look at the information in his hand. This was the information that the opponent's disciple sent to him before he was about to get off work this afternoon. Fortunately, he did not ignore the opponent because he was a genin. nor did he implicate Yi Kang's disciples and friends too much. Otherwise, he didn't think that the opponent would let his disciples come to him for warning. Even with this warning, the situation just now was extremely dangerous. If he hadn't been well prepared and hadn't hesitated after receiving the information, he would probably have been killed by this woman tonight. Even if he won this time, he and those people had torn their faces this time. If they didn't fight to the death, this matter would not be over at all. Knock, knock, knock. Lord Kazekage, those rebels have all been controlled. Some of them resisted stubbornly and have been dealt with on the spot by my subordinates. As soon as he entered the door, Maki half knelt on the ground very stiffly and reported his actions tonight in detail. At the end, he did not forget to remind Luosha, the assassin has not been caught yet. I wonder if we should send out elite personnel to hunt down Yi Kang. As soon as he heard the name Yi Kang, Luosha wanted to send someone to kill the guy who caused the chaos tonight. However, reason prevailed. No need. Tonight, we should focus on stabilizing the situation. As for Yi Kang, at this time, the situation in the village was changing. He had extra people to chase Yi Kang, but it was not a good idea to just leave it alone. Raise the opponent's danger level to S level. Also, keep a close eye on their every move, and notify our border garrisons and the people on the front line to raise their vigilance. Raise his vigilance. But he didn't know whether he was vigilant against Yi Kang. Those Sand Ninja high-ranking officials who had already torn their faces with him, or their followers. Forget it. Take a group of reliable people with you and rush to the front line overnight. Don't let anything go wrong there. Especially when he mentioned reliable people, Luosha deliberately emphasized his tone. Yes, I'll do it right away. Knowing that the matter ordered by the Kazekage was extremely important, Maki was happy that he could gain the trust of the Kazekage. But at the same time he began to worry about the future of the Sand Village. However, after looking at Luosha sitting in the Kazekage's seat, Maki didn't dwell on these things. These were all things that the Kazekage needed to consider. Chapter 388 Yi Kang's thoughts. That is to say, your so-called revenge is to use yourself as bait to make the Sand Village's top leaders completely fall out? Then let them fight each other. In the backyard of the store, Emika's unbelievable voice came. Not only her, but even Tawashiru next to him looked at Yi Kang with a pained look on his face, not knowing how to evaluate his actions. But won't this cause a large number of ninjas in the village to die because of the fights among these top leaders? Moreover, if the village's top leaders are in turmoil, it may give other villages a chance. Wouldn't that be? Although Emika's strength is not that strong, after all, she is a ninja trained by the Sand Village. She is still instinctively resistant to the turmoil in the village. Emika, you should know that since the resources of the Sand Village are limited, most of the ninjas like to stick together for warmth, which has led to a strong sense of factionalism in the village. These people gather together not to protect the safety of the village, but more to better rob the village of its already scarce resources. The turmoil in the upper echelons and the village is only temporary. Once the struggle between them is decided, the village can usher in a brand new future. At this point, Yi Kang's face showed a trace of longing, as if a sand village with everyone working together for the future of the village appeared in front of her. Really? A fantastic idea. He knew that this guy was devoted to the sand village. But after being betrayed once, he actually did such a naive thing, which he had never expected. Have you ever thought about what the end of the Sand Village would be like if Luosha couldn't control the situation? The struggle between the top leaders is full of intrigues. If things go wrong, Luosha might be killed by his opponents. Then change a new Kazekage. Facing Dong Shilang's question, Yi Kang gave the answer without hesitation. No matter what the final result of the struggle between them is, the final winner will get the support of everyone in the Sand Village. At that time, the whole village will be united, and there will no longer be a situation where there are many mountains and there will no longer be people like me who are betrayed. Yi Kang is not a narrow-minded person. Since she was betrayed, she has been thinking about why things have become like this. After thinking about it, the Sand Village's economy that is not enough to make ends meet and the various conflicts among the top leaders caused by it are a very important reason. She has no good solution for the economy, but the conflicts among the top leaders are a problem she can try to solve. Therefore, She created such an opportunity that would cause the village's top leaders to fight each other. I still think, if we do this, the future of the village will be worrying. Although Yi Kang's approach makes some sense, Emika still thinks it's not a good idea. If it goes on like this, the village might be seriously damaged. Will it be worse than it is now? Yi Kang was dismissive of Emika's concerns. No matter how bad the Sand Village is, it still has the one tail, and is one of the 5 great nations. After some time of recuperation, when the next generation grows up, it will be another great nation. Moreover, in order to prevent this matter from getting completely out of control, she did not fail to make preparations in advance. The reason why Luosha was able to receive the news in advance was that she asked her disciples to report it. Of course, if Luosha did not meet Maki, or did not believe the news brought by Maki after meeting him, or did not respond properly and died directly in the night attack tonight, it would be his own fault. But now it seems that with the list she gave, Luosha has a good control of the situation, and the next step is to deal with the counterattack of those high-level officials. If he can turn the tables like this, it can only mean that the person who defeated him is more suitable to be the Kazekage than him. And she is happy about it. Forget it. Whatever you want. Her friend has always had her own opinion since she was a child, and the thing has been done. There is nothing she can do. After all, she is not a ninja now. Instead of caring about these things, it is better to care about the relationship between the other party and the handsome guy next to her, which is much more interesting than these things that are not related to her. Ah, my house. Just when Emika was about to learn more about the relationship between this guy who took advantage of her and Yi Kang, her sight finally shifted to her own shop. She screamed on the spot. How could this happen? How could those bastards and the guys in the Anbu do this? Although she had long realized that her shop should be seriously damaged this time, after seeing the situation in the front yard, Emika still found it difficult to accept. I spent all my last savings and finally bought it. This shop can be said to be her hard work. She is counting on this shop to support her in her old age. Now it has been destroyed like this. What should she do? Entering the front yard of the hotel. It was originally a hotel with desert characteristics, with tapestries and the unique style of the Kingdom of Wind, bottles and jars, thick stone walls, narrow windows and exquisite wooden doors. But now, these exquisite decorations have become tattered, the tapestries have been burnt black, and the bottles and jars have been broken, with fragments scattered on the floor. At the end of the corridor in the living room, the broken walls and ceilings exposed the cruelty of the battle. The paint on the wall was burnt black, and the broken windows let the wind and sand pass through the broken glass, making a shrill whistle. In the center of the living room, the originally thick and neat carpet seemed to be cut into pieces by a sharp blade, and there was a large pool of blood that had not yet dried on it, making the whole living room full of a fishy smell. Sorry, they should have followed me here. Seeing his friend's hotel become like this, Yi Kang didn't expect things to turn out like this, and couldn't help feeling a little embarrassed. She didn't expect that she just randomly found a direction to avoid the pursuers who were chasing her, and actually ran into Emika's shop, and met Dong Shilang. Forget it, it's not your fault. I'm already very happy to see you again. At this point, Emika had nothing to complain about. Fortunately, the decorations in this shop were all made by her, and it didn't cost much to restore them to their original state. It's just decoration. For a ninja, it's just a piece of cake. These are all small things, but you. Emika looked at Yi Kang and Dong Shilang, who had not spoken much. Chapter 389 Plan. What's wrong with me? Facing Emika's gaze, Yi Kang had no idea what the other party was worried about. Are you thinking about what I will do in the future? After thinking for a while, Yi Kang knew what the other party meant, but she didn't take it to heart. You are a traitor to begin with, and you did such a thing. You can't stay in the Wind Country at all. If you are wandering outside alone, I am very worried about your future. In the past, although Luosha announced that Yi Kang became a traitor, the reason for doing so was just to deal with the Mist Ninja, and no one was sent to hunt down Yi Kang. Now it's different. If the other party does such a thing, Luosha or the high-level officials of the Sand Village will not let Yi Kang go easily. Don't worry, they are busy fighting each other. How can they care about me? Just as she said, The high-level officials of the Sand Village would not pay attention to her until the final winner was decided. But I'm a little worried about you wandering around alone. With your personality, you might do something shocking again at any time. Then you may not be able to be as relaxed as this time. Squinting her eyes, Emika set her sights on Dong Shilang. She didn't know what the specific situation was between Yi Kang and this guy, nor did she know if this guy was reliable. This young man, are you familiar with Yi Kang? Do you like her? Looking at these two people, an idea came to her mind, and then Emika asked directly. Dong Shilang was stunned by the sudden attack of the boss lady, his mouth wide open, feeling that he couldn't keep up with the other party's jumping thoughts. Wasn't he still sad about his house and worried about Yi Kang's future just now? Why did he jump to himself again? Although Yi Kang is a little arrogant and cold, she treats her friends and disciples very well, even the village. Although she betrayed her, she still considered the Sand Village. How about it? It's a good choice. Seeing Tawashiru's stunned look, Emika did not stop, but counted on her fingers and listed the other party's advantages one by one. She is also beautiful and generous, and even her strength is very strong. She has developed her own bloodline limit. Having such a girlfriend, or wife, brother, you are lucky. While counting on her fingers, Emika walked to Tawashiru's side with a familiar look. She was originally going to put her arm around Tawashiru's shoulder directly, but it seemed that she thought of something, so she changed the posture of arm around his shoulder and gently bumped Tawashiru's shoulder. At the same time, she blinked at Tawashiru. I drugged this guy twice, but he seemed to be fine. It can't be explained by his special physique. His own strength should not be bad. Besides, Yi Kang is still alone now. If he has a partner, he can rest assured that he can wander outside. Just barely he glanced at Yi Kang with his eyes slanted, and had to admit that even if it was an ordinary civilian's clothes in the Sand Village, it would have a different flavor on this woman. Coupled with the blush on her face, it made him, an old pervert who had seen many beauties, drool. You too? Shut up. Whoever wants to be this guy's girlfriend. And what wife? Whoever wants to be. Anyway, she doesn't care. What's just barely? It's nonsense. How is Yi Kang worse than others? Don't listen to this guy. She is just hard on the outside, and you will know when you two are together for a long time. I tell you, our Yi Kang. Emika didn't take Yi Kang's scolding to heart at all, but leaned close to Tawashiru's ear and began to whisper, as if she wanted to reveal some secrets of Yi Kang to Tawashiru. Emika, if you keep talking nonsense, I will tear your mouth to pieces. Seeing Emika's excitement and Dong Shilang's attentive listening, Yi Kang felt that he was not feeling well. How could she have such a friend? And he was being hard-mouthed but soft-hearted. Let go. Let go. I am not considering your future. You are wandering outside alone. If no one takes care of you, you may die at any time. This guy is handsome and should be quite capable. He is also familiar with you. The two of you can be a pair. Isn't this the best choice? Although Yi Kang grabbed her arm and pulled her away, Emika still didn't intend to give up. Although Yi Kang said that he didn't know the other party, when had she ever had such an attitude towards a man? It was just that he didn't want to admit it. If you don't speak, no one will think you are dumb. Listening to his friends chattering, Yi Kang's face flushed red, like a rose blooming in the desert, exuding his own unique style. And you? What are you looking at? Yi Kang was not satisfied with just stopping Emika from talking nonsense, and turned around to glare at Dong Shilang fiercely. Who wants to be a couple with this guy? When I just came in, I saw that you seemed to be enjoying each other. I think you are just an idiot who is obsessed with him. You can't walk when you see a handsome guy. When I first came in, these two guys didn't look like customers and bosses at all. They were more like a couple who were about to do something naughty. They even lied to me that they were going to catch a spy. What a lie. Just like the other party knows me, I know this good friend's personality very well. This guy can't help but be obsessed with handsome guys. No matter how many times I say it, it's useless. How can it be? I just seduced him at most. Isn't this just a review of the teaching content of the ninja school? Besides, you haven't confirmed your relationship yet. What's the harm if I take advantage of you? It's better for me than for others to get a bargain. Looking at Yi Kang's face gradually getting darker, Emika's voice became smaller and smaller. Ouch. Be gentle. You're seeking revenge. It seemed that Yi Kang's hand was a little too strong, and Emika suddenly screamed like a pig being slaughtered. Handsome guy, you have good taste. Touching the stubble on his chin, Dong Shilang had to admit that the boss lady had a pretty good taste. And when he shifted his gaze slightly and looked at the two women who were playing around, he thought of the other party's proposal just now, and he admitted that he was tempted. But when he thought of his grand goal, it seemed that there was still a long way to go. Chapter 390 Poisoning or Plastic Sisters? The desolate desert is set against the bright starlight, as if it is the Milky Way that has fallen into the world. The countless crystal stars surround the full moon, and the stars hold the moon, illuminating this dead desert. Suddenly, a meteor streaked across the night sky, as if bringing a touch of mysterious melody to this silent desert. Burning with blazing flames, it cuts through the tranquility of the night, leaving a beautiful arc. Under the night sky of the sand village, a dilapidated desert hotel stands. It is devastated, but still stands tenaciously in its original place. Traces of battle can still be vaguely seen on the walls of the hotel, with knife marks, holes and dried bloodstains, each of which records everything that has happened here. The moonlight sprinkled on the interior of the hotel through the dilapidated windows, casting mottled moon shadows, adding a bit of mystery and silence to this weathered building. That night, Yi Kang was not in a hurry to leave. She had heard about the battle between Dong Shilang and the Raikage. With the other party around, she was very confident of her safety. She was also very tired from carrying out her plan these days, and she just needed a good sleep. After eating a midnight snack prepared by Emika, she moved into a guest room that was still relatively intact to rest. But for some reason, when she lay down on the bed, she couldn't fall asleep. An inexplicable heat would always attack her heart from time to time, making her have some inappropriate thoughts and unable to fall asleep peacefully. Is it the poison I got before, or is it because I have completed this plan and my spirit is a little excited? While tossing and turning, Yi Kang ruled out the reasons for her current condition one by one, and at the same time got up and injected herself with another dose of antidote. She was a sand ninja. Although poison was not her main means, she would always have antidote. Then she threw herself on the bed and forced herself to fall asleep. Creak. In the second half of the night, a not very obvious sound of opening the door was heard, and then the slight snoring in the room was interrupted. Ninjas are very alert. Even if the other party did not have any bad intentions, Dong Shilang woke up quickly. However, looking at Yi Kang, who was struggling beside his bed, he did not react at once. I. After a long time, Yi Kang did not utter a complete sentence. Instead, he seemed to accept his fate and threw himself into Dong Shilang's arms. With just a glance, he knew that Yi Kang should be poisoned. He quickly reached out and pressed his hand on the other party's heart, and probed his chakra to check the other party's condition. At the same time, he used medical ninjutsu to see if he could wake the other party up. If he had sex with the other party in this state, he would have some resistance. But, with the soft jade and warm fragrance in his arms, smelling the refreshing fragrance of the other party, feeling the scalding temperature of the other party, and the hot air sprayed on his neck, Dong Shilang felt that he could not hold on for long. Is he a beast or worse than a beast? I feel so uncomfortable. Just when Dong Shilang was still hesitating, Yi Kang directly pulled out the hairpin on her head, shook her head lightly, and let her long hair spread out, which made Dong Shilang's last hesitation disappear. He gently helped Yi Kang clear the obstacles on her body, picked up her soft body, gently turned her over, and then hugged her waist from behind. Then, something happened that everyone liked to see. The next morning, a beam of sunlight quietly sneaked into the bedroom, gently sprinkled on the bed, and illuminated a quiet morning. Dong Shilang lay quietly on the bed. His face looked soft and lively under the touch of the sun. His hair fluttered slightly, and his eyes looked for a trace of remaining traces in the messy bed. The bed looked messy and comfortable, as if telling the dream of last night. The wrinkles on the pillow and the indentations on the quilt all told about that wonderful night. Grabbing a strand of tangled hair beside the pillow and sniffing it, Dong Shilang's eyes swept over a hole in the bed sheet and shook his head. The woman was gone, leaving only the lingering fragrance on his fingertips. "You were very noisy last night." After cleaning up and going downstairs, he saw Amika, who was cleaning the living room. She was awakened by the noise in Dong Shilang's room in the second half of the night. As a single woman, how could she continue to sleep? It was only at dawn that she fell asleep in a daze. At this time, she looked at Dong Shilang with a very resentful look. "Where's Yi Kang? He hasn't gotten up yet." Today I prepared her favorite desert aloe vera and cactus fruit juice. Desert aloe vera is a plant that can grow in arid deserts and is a rare vegetable in the Kingdom of Wind. As for cactus juice, it is a special drink of the Kingdom of Wind extracted from cactus fruit. Yakura is gone. Yakura left before dawn. At that time, Dong Shilang was still asleep because he was too tired. But when he woke up in the morning, he only had a slight sense to know that he had left the sand village. "You yesterday." Dong Shilang squinted his eyes and looked at Temika up and down. He was a little suspicious. The reason why Yakura was like this last night, was it because of this guy's trick? Otherwise, there is no reason. Could it be these two are fake sisters? Gone? Why did she leave without saying goodbye? Was she afraid that I would laugh at her? For this news, Emika was obviously a little unprepared. She widened her eyes and stared at Dong Shilang. "Are you trying to deny it?" Dong Shilang really didn't know whether his one-night stand with Yakura was because she was poisoned before or because of Emika's help. "Forget it. Let's eat first." Shaking his head, Dong Shilang threw all these things out of his mind. None of them mattered. The ninja world was so small. He believed that he and Yakura would meet again. "I was so confused this time that I forgot to put a Flying Thunder God mark on Yi Kang. It would be easy for me to find her for such a job." "Emika, I'm leaving too." After breakfast, Toshiro said goodbye to the proprietress. This time when he came to the sand village, he really had an unexpected gain. Not only did he get Shukaku's chakra, but he also unexpectedly had sex with Yi Kang. Thinking back to the passion of last night, Toshiro walked out of the sand village and disappeared in the vast sea of sand. P.S. I was planning to write this paragraph carefully, but I found out this morning that the encounter I posted before was actually reviewed and modified. In the end, I decided not to take the risk. Chapter 391 Fat Sheep Snake Uncle. The rolling hills and gullies are crisscrossed, and the wind, carrying the smell of soil, freely passes through the gaps between the hills. The sun shines through the clouds, illuminating this hilly area. People bathe in this warm light and feel the gift of the earth. A passing traveler walks alone in this hilly area, as if he is visiting the unique natural scenery here. The person who came was Uchiha Toshiro. Since saying goodbye to Yi Kang, he has restarted his journey to collect the chakra of the tailed beasts. The first stop is of course Takigakure village. Using the impure world reincarnation, he easily learned the identity of the contemporary Seven Tails Jinchuriki from several deceased Takigakure village high-level officials. The subsequent operation was also very smooth. He directly took the chakra of the Seven Tails without alarming anyone. And his current target is naturally Iwagakure village. Who is it? While admiring the scenery around him, Toshiro suddenly noticed something and turned his eyes to a big tree beside him. He. Dong Shilang is still so sharp. As Dong Shilang locked his eyes, two figures, one tall and one short, appeared from behind the big tree, which was originally normal. One of them, as soon as he appeared, stared at Dong Shilang's figure with his golden vertical pupils. Looking at Dong Shilang's eyes, he was like a hungry poisonous snake, with greed and desire in his eyes. "It's Orochimaru-senpai. It's been a long time." Looking at the other party licking the corners of his mouth as usual, Dong Shilang's eyes twitched uncontrollably. "You stared at me with this look as soon as we met." It seems that the senior's reincarnation of the corpse has been completed. With this guy's eyes, he knew what the other party was thinking without thinking. Isn't it just coveting his body? However, he really wanted to say to Uncle Snake, "Boss, I've been waiting so hard, and the 40-meter-long sword in my hand is already thirsty." This guy looks a little unfamiliar. Ignoring Orochimaru's gaze, Toshiro turned his gaze to the short figure with glasses next to him. "This is my assistant, Kabuto." Hearing Orochimaru introduce himself, Kabuto pushed his glasses and looked at Toshiro in front of him very seriously. "Nice to meet you, Master Toshiro." Please take care of me in the future. Instinctively, Kabuto looked at Toshiro carefully, then bowed his head slightly and saluted Toshiro very humbly. It seems that Senior Orochimaru has found a very good assistant. Kabuto is now only a child of 16 or 17 years old, with a hint of childishness on his face, but through the eyes on his nose, it can be seen that there is no trace of innocence or stupidity in the eyes of a young man of this age. Instead, there is a gloomy and hidden darkness. Haha. Kabuto is indeed a good helper. With his help, I was able to successfully complete that ninjutsu. Turning his head slightly and taking a look at Kabuto, Orochimaru was very glad that he had gotten Kabuto from Danzo. The other party's talent did not disappoint him. Speaking of which, Toshiro's whereabouts are really hard to find. He actually went to the border of the land of Earth. If it weren't for the help of the organization, I really wouldn't be able to find your whereabouts. While speaking, Orochimaru inadvertently uttered the word organization, and then his eyes rolled, staring at Toshiro's every move without blinking. It seemed that he wanted to see something from the other party's face. Nothing. I was just a little bored recently, so I went out for a stroll. I had this idea, or it was inspired by a friend of Orochimaru's senior. With a laugh, Toshiro directly fooled the topic. However, although he didn't show it on his face, he couldn't help but mutter in his heart, using the Akatsuki organization to find him. Did he register with Obito, or was it just a coincidence? If it was the latter, it would be fine. If it was the former, he would have to be more alert. Really, without seeing any expression on Toshiro's face, Orochimaru narrowed his eyes and began to think about the meaning of his reaction. Since Toshiro knew about the Samsara Eye, he must know about Akatsuki. He just didn't know how much he knew about Akatsuki's inside story. And, I don't know, Senior Orochimaru came to me this time. What's the important thing? Looking at Orochimaru with an erratic look, Toshiro asked knowingly. The thing is naturally another deal. About the Samsara Eye. After defecting from Konoha, he first found a place to stay for himself, and by the way, made Kabuto his assistant. Not only did he help him a lot in medical ninjutsu, but he was also a master in intelligence gathering. With Toshiro's hint, he quickly found clues about Akatsuki, and also learned that the other party really had the Samsara Eye. When the other party came to him following the clues he left behind, as soon as he saw the ripples in the other party's eyes, he immediately had the idea of seizing the other party's body. And he didn't even care that his non-corpse reincarnation technique was not yet perfect. Although the ending failed, he also successfully joined the organization and secretly observed and collected information about the Samsara Eye. Now that he has completed the non-corpse reincarnation technique, how can he still hold back? He hurriedly found Dong Shilang to see if the other party had the information he wanted. The information was provided by the other party. Uchiha is also a family of eye techniques, so it is normal to have information in this area. Trade? Good deal. Dong Shilang couldn't help but curl up the corners of his mouth. He likes trading the most. As one of the three ninjas and a master of forbidden techniques, the other party has a lot of good things in his hands, and his information is basically a free trade. No matter how he calculates it, he won't lose. I do have information about the Samsara Eye, but this price. Just like Orochimaru coveted Sasuke in the future, Orochimaru coveted the Samsara Eye now. With this bargaining chip, how could Dong Shilang not ask for a high price? He has Toshiro named the ninjutsu and secret techniques one by one. Orochimaru just chuckled twice. Toshiro has quite an appetite. Moreover, I didn't expect that you, as an Uchiha, would be interested in the power of the Shodaime Hokage. It really surprised me. Licking his lips again, Orochimaru's face looked a little unhappy. The other party's look just now was like the way those gamblers looked at Tsunade when she stepped into the casino, which made him very unhappy. Moreover, the other party was too greedy, and actually named several secret ninjutsu at once, including Flying Thunder God Technique, Corpse Reincarnation, Shodaime Cells, etc. Does this treat him as a big fat sheep? Want to slaughter him hard? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel. Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 392, Fighting. It seems that Senior Orochimaru doesn't understand the power of the Samsara Eye. Seeing that Orochimaru seemed to be about to turn hostile, Toshiro spoke up quickly. This wasn't too bad of him. After all, the power of the Samsara Eye was really abnormal. How could it be possible to exchange for the other party's information with just one or two secret techniques? Moreover, in the ninja world, he was the only one who would reveal the news of the Samsara Eye to Orochimaru. With his unique business, he was not afraid that Orochimaru would not take the bait. I think Senior Orochimaru has also experienced the difficulty of Samsara Ran. You know, the ability that the other party has revealed is only a very small part. The original owner of the Samsara Eye was called the Sage of Six Paths. Why is the other party called the Sage of Six Paths? Have you ever thought about this question? Seeing that he had attracted Orochimaru's attention, Toshiro did not stop and continued. The so-called six paths are the heaven path, the human path, the help path. Each of them represents a completely different ability, and each of them has an unpredictable ability. Together, it has the unpredictable power of resurrection. Toshiro naturally would not explain the secret of the Samsara Eye in detail to Orochimaru before he got the thing. He just gave him a general description to whet Orochimaru's appetite. It seems Toshiro knows some secrets that I don't know. In Orochimaru's flickering eyes, an undisguised greed emerged, so rich that it almost overflowed. He knew that Toshiro might have information about the Samsara Eye, but he didn't expect that the other party knew it so clearly. This aroused his curiosity. Could it be that the other party had some information source that he didn't know about? Haha. This is the benefit of a long-standing family. Facing Orochimaru's curious eyes, Toshiro laughed and directly attributed the fact that he knew all this to the specialness of his family. The Uchiha and Senju families have a long heritage, and our Uchiha is a family of eye techniques. Naturally, we have records of the Samsara Eye, which also belongs to the eye technique. Not only our Uchiha, I believe that even the Senju family should have records about the Six Paths Sage. As if worried that Orochimaru would not believe it, Toshiro continued, as far as I know, there should be some records about the Six Paths technique in the Senju family. Or there is a related heritage. The first generation later recognized Madara's method of controlling Obito at a glance, and said the Six Paths technique on the spot. Obviously he knew it. Senju? Hearing Toshiro mention Senju, Tsunade's figure immediately emerged in Orochimaru's mind. Does the other party's family really have such a heritage? Well, these don't matter. After thinking for a while, Orochimaru stopped dwelling on this question and instead cast his gaze on Toshiro. After our last meeting, Toshiro has grown amazingly. I'm now very curious about how far you've come. He had long wanted to see Toshiro's strength, but he was tricked by Sarutobi last time and was not in peak condition. This time, the opportunity was just right. He also heard that the other party had captured the Two Tails and Eight Tails Jinchuriki in succession at the northern border of Konoha, and even defeated the Abi combination. There was also the other party's Meixiang Sharingan, which were all things he was interested in. Others no need for that. There was no fun at all in fighting with an old hand like Orochimaru. He didn't need to think about it to know that the other party's methods must be varied and insidious. This was a completely different style of fighting with the Raikage. But Orochimaru was not a person who would easily change his mind. He slowly pressed his abdomen with both hands. Then he tilted his head up and stretched his neck. Hiss! A sound of a venomous snake spitting out its tongue came out. This is really perverted. Watching a venomous snake as thick as an arm slowly crawl out of Orochimaru's wide-open mouth, and then the sticky and wet Kusanagi sword spit out from the snake's mouth. Toshiro held his forehead with his hand. He couldn't accept the unique aesthetics of Orochimaru. Go, Toshiro, let me see how much you have grown during this period of time. Are you qualified to take these things from me? Reaching out to catch the long sword that fell from the snake's mouth, Orochimaru casually made a few sword flowers, and then turned his head and looked at Toshiro steadily. As he danced with the sword, a storm pressed towards Toshiro, blowing the few trees around to the ground. As for Kabuto, who had been standing silently by the side, he had already seen the bad situation and dodged far away. Since the senior insists on doing this, since the other party took the initiative to ask for a hammer, Danshiro moved his shoulders and took out the kunai he used in the last battle against the Raikage from behind him. Swish! Just after he took out his kunai, Tawashiro left the place where he was standing before using his bloodline. Just as he left, a snake mouth with a diameter of several meters popped out from the ground and bit a lonely man. Senior's style is really as ruthless as the legend says. Just after he stood firm, Tawashiro couldn't help but complain about Orochimaru's fighting style, which was really cold and ruthless. He attacked without even saying hello, and he used snake summoning technique right at the beginning, which really lived up to its reputation. These are just appetizers. Controlling a big snake to dive into the ground, and then letting the opponent go up from the bottom to swallow the opponent and the soil in one bite. This is a unique skill he learned from Hanzo of the Salamander. It's just a pity that the method is useless to Uchiha Tawashiro, who sensed the changes in the ground one step ahead. Be careful next time. After saying this, Orochimaru turned into a shadow and disappeared on the spot. Ding! A crisp metallic collision sound was heard. TSK, TSK, TSK. Is this the newly developed bloodline limit of Tawashiro? It is as sharp as the rumors say. Looking at the blue-green sword light in Tawashiro's hand that seemed to flow like water, Orochimaru exclaimed in admiration. It can even block the sharpness of the Kusanagi sword in his hand. It is really as sharp as described in the intelligence. The long sword in the hands of the senior is also very good. It just so happens that I am also short of a handy weapon. Why don't you give it to me? He didn't even need to open the Sharingan. Just relying on his perception ability, he determined the landing point of the opponent's attack. He materialized the chakra longsword and just raised his hand lightly to block Orochimaru's amazingly fast stab. He still had time to praise the Kusanagi sword in the opponent's hand. Chapter 393, Fight 2. I was really underestimated by Tawashiro. You didn't even open your Sharingan. Seeing Tawashiro only using his new bloodline to block the attack, and not even opening her Sharingan, Orochimaru was very dissatisfied. I'm also going to see if the Meixiang Sharingan is as mysterious as the legend says. Before he finished speaking, 4 or 5 arm-thick spotted black snakes opened their fangs at the cuffs of Orochimaru's khaki shirt and bit Tawashiro. Obviously, the opponent had a backup for this attack, which was his specialty, the hidden shadow snake hand. To see the Meixiang, it depends on the ability of Orochimaru-senpai. Before these annoying pythons could get close, Tawashiro opened his mouth and spit out a wind blade that was invisible to the naked eye to dissolve Orochimaru's attack. The hidden shadow snake hand is a ninjutsu that can only be used against ordinary ninjas, and in battles at their level. It can also play a harassing role. Really? You're so confident. Dong Shilang was like this, and so was Pain, who had just taught him a lesson. The young people nowadays are really amazing. It's impolite not to reciprocate. The other party took the initiative, and Dong Shilang didn't care. He directly increased the chakra output from his mouth. Then he shook his head. The wind blade in his mouth did not dissipate after cutting the hidden shadow snake hand into pieces. Instead, with the swing of Dong Shilang's head, Orochimaru's body was included in his attack range. Swish! As Dong Shilang shook his head, Orochimaru's body was separated from the upper and lower parts, and was cut in half by the wind blade in his mouth, and the body fell to the ground. Before Kabuto, who was watching the battle nearby, could scream, a huge python rushed towards Dong Shilang. It was the python that Orochimaru had summoned before, ready to swallow Dong Shilang in one bite. Facing this attack, Dong Shilang did not choose to kill it with the frost sky in his hand, but gathered his strength in his hand and punched the opponent. It's not that he had to use brute force to deal with the attack of the summoned snake, but he had no time to deal with it now, because Orochimaru's follow-up attack arrived. Earth Substitute, the body of Orochimaru, which had just been cut into 2 pieces by the wind blade from Tawashiro's mouth, suddenly turned into a pool of flowing brown mud. After squirming for a while, his figure regrouped behind Tawashiro. Then he stabbed Tawashiro's back with a sword. Tawashiro swung his left fist and used his strange power to repel the snake, while his right wrist turned, and the blade of the chakra sword in his hand swung back, extending its length while repelling the opponent's attack, and slashed towards Orochimaru with a sweeping blow. What a convenient ability! Using the long sword in his hand to block Tawashiro's attack, Orochimaru used the power of the long sword to pull away. As he left, the snake that was originally repelled by Tawashiro's strange power attacked Tawashiro again. However, it did not continue to be stubborn. The entire huge snake body twisted and drew an arc to rush towards Dong Shilang's flank, and as the scales on its abdomen squirmed rapidly, it quickly surrounded Dong Shilang in the middle of its body, and then formed a meat mountain, and this meat mountain was slowly tightening, as if it was going to strangle Dong Shilang directly like it did with the previous opponents. But how could this level of attack be difficult for Dong Shilang? The chakra longsword in his hand, which was originally only extended to about 2 meters, began to grow rapidly as his chakra was injected. Swish! I saw a few blue chakra lights flashing, and the python, which was still tightening its body, suddenly paused. Then the whole body began to twitch, and then a large amount of blood began to splash. What a trouble! Looking at the oncoming snake blood, Dong Shilang, who was preempted by Orochimaru, had no good way, and directly used the Rasengan version of Kaden that he developed to resist the next attack. Orochimaru, who was watching all this from the outside, did not feel the slightest bit of regret because the snake he summoned was killed by Tawashiro. Instead, he had a smile like a prey falling into a trap. Explode! As he uttered the word explode, the scales on the snake he summoned changed. The palm-sized, yellow-brown scales disappeared, revealing a dense mass of detonating talismans. Boom! A burst of orange-red flames was followed by a huge burst of black smoke. This was a tactic he often used in war. First, the summoned snake launched the first wave of attacks, followed by his own body launching an attack to distract the opponent's attention, and then he used the hidden snake hand to harass. Ordinary ninjas can be dealt with these 3 moves. If they encounter a stronger opponent, the snake he summoned will continue with the 4th wave of attacks. If this still cannot kill the opponent, then he will control the snake to wrap up the opponent and blow the opponent into pieces with the detonating talismans he prepared in advance. This set of attacks is linked together. If a weak cage-level warrior is not careful, it is possible that he will fall. What's that sound? A team of rock ninjas wearing khaki combat uniforms were patrolling the border. Suddenly, the leader of the rock ninjas stopped and began to listen. I just seemed to hear the sound of a large number of detonating tags exploding. The sound was just a flash, and when he stopped, he could only hear the whimpering sound of the strong wind blowing over the hills. Turning his head, he asked his subordinates behind him with some reluctance, "Did you hear any sound?" "Captain Healing, we didn't find anything." Faced with the boss's inquiry, the rock ninjas behind him looked at each other, and then shook their heads at him. "Did I hear it wrong?" Not long after the war with the Sand Ninjas and the Cloud Ninjas ended, this rock ninja who had just retreated from the front line frowned and continued to listen for a while, but still found nothing. "Captain, look over there." Just when the Brown Ridge captain thought that his nerves were too tense and he had not yet adapted to this ordinary border patrol mission, a young man in the team pointed to the distance. Following the pointing finger, the Brown Ridge captain soon discovered something strange in the distance. This is the black smoke caused by the explosion of a large-scale detonating talisman. "Guangxi, you go back and report first, and ask the outpost to send more people. The rest of you, come with me to take a look." After asking the subordinates who discovered the abnormality to report back, the Brown Ridge captain led his subordinates and moved towards the distance. There are only 3 chapters today. Please forgive me. Chapter 394 Perversion. Boom. A violent explosion was heard, and the large snake with a diameter of several meters was blown to pieces by a large number of detonating talismans. Disappeared. The blood and flesh of the psychic snake were thrown hundreds of meters away, and a large amount of blood and flesh were scattered on the spot, turning this place into a meat mill. Even the figure of Dong Shilang disappeared, as if he had disappeared in the explosion just now. Did he leave from underground, or did he use other methods that I don't know? A pair of golden snake pupils turned, and the long sword in his hand was across his chest. Orochimaru searched for Dong Shilang's traces while taking a defensive posture. Although he had done something underground, he didn't think he could defeat the opponent so easily. Ding! Sure enough, just after he crossed the long sword across his chest, in his special snake perception, a creature emitting mammal body temperature was approaching rapidly from behind him. Senior's perception ability is really amazing. He can actually find my traces. Dong Shilang was not upset when his attack was blocked by Orochimaru, but he was a little curious about the way the other party perceived the enemy. After years of practicing the Sage Mode, he could not be detected by ordinary sensing methods after entering the combat state. I am also curious about the way Dong Shilang escaped. There is also this strange hiding method. It is very unusual. I also want to understand it clearly. Blocking Dong Shilang's powerful attack, Orochimaru was surprised at the opponent's method, but he did not stop his actions. The long sword blocked, and the Kusanagi sword in his hand also increased in length. At an unexpected angle, it stabbed towards Dong Shilang's heart. Is this the method of the old ape demon? Senior is really worthy of being the disciple of the third-generation Hokage. As the saying goes, an inch longer is an inch stronger. Facing this amazingly long and extremely sharp long sword, Dong Shilang directly came to Orochimaru's side. The chakra long sword in his hand also turned into a short sword less than 1 foot long, and it kept flying up and down with the movements of his hands. Swish! A flash of blue light flashed. At such a close distance, even with Orochimaru's amazing flexibility, it was still difficult to resist. He leaned back and his head almost touched the ground. He barely avoided the frost sky that suddenly stretched out in Tawashiru's hand. Although he avoided this attack, his khaki robe on his chest was still cut open. But before Tawashiru could take advantage of the victory, Orochimaru attacked his head from an angle he had never expected. What a snake-like man! Watching Orochimaru leaning back and his head touching the ground, he continued to curl his body in the opposite direction, then stuck his head out from under his crotch and opened his mouth to spit out a long scarlet tongue. Tawashiru had no intention of making contact with this tongue, not to mention the speed and power it carried. The wet and sticky unknown liquid on the long tongue alone made Tawashiru stay away. You are a grown man, and you attack others with your tongue at every turn. What do you want to do? He jumped up and distanced himself from Orochimaru. He used his longsword to block the sharp edge of Kusanagi's sword in the air, then opened his mouth and spit out a scorching fireball, which burned the long tongue in the opponent's body. This bastard didn't just attack with his tongue, but also let his tongue chase him. Dong Shilang couldn't stand this pervert and directly rewarded him with a fireball. He wanted to see if this guy's tongue was impervious to water and fire. How could a simple fireball attack Orochimaru directly? Before the fireball reached him, the ground under his feet was rippled like water waves, swallowing him up. Of course, it was too late for his tongue to sink into the ground. Dong Shilang, who jumped into the air, saw this scene and didn't bother to observe the tongue. On the way down, he raised his right foot high. Super strength with a kick of super strength, he smashed the ground where he landed into a large pit with a diameter of more than 10 meters, causing the nearby ground to jump. Dong Shiro's hand kept moving, and the chakra sword extended, stabbing at the ground under his feet. You are really cautious. Pierced by Dong Shiro's chakra sword, half of his body emerged from the big pit created by Dong Shiro's strange power. Orochimaru didn't care about the wound on his chest at all, but opened his mouth to a limit beyond the reach of a human jaw. As his mouth opened wide, a pale arm stretched out from his mouth, and then a brand new, wet Orochimaru reappeared in front of Dong Shiro. It was the substitute technique of the snake style, swish. But unfortunately, this newly reborn Orochimaru had no time to breathe fresh air, and a bright sword light cut him in the waist. Click. Looking at Orochimaru, who was split in half again, Dong Shiro shook his head. Clones. Don't try these little tricks in front of me, senior. As Tawashiru finished his words, the split Orochimaru turned into two pieces of mud, with Orochimaru's body still there. TSK, senior, if your teacher saw you like this, he would be heartbroken. Tawashiru turned his eyes away from the two pieces of mud and looked at an open space 20 meters away. As his eyes fell, a snake-like figure slowly emerged from the mud in the open space. The upper body still maintained a human form, but the lower body completely turned into a snake tail more than 3 meters long. Teacher Sarutobi, squinting his eyes, Orochimaru seemed to recall some childhood memories, but he quickly eliminated these images from his mind. One day, I will return to Konoha and let Sarutobi-sensei appreciate my achievements over the years. I hope Tawashiro won't be a hindrance to me then. Orochimaru couldn't control his emotions when he thought about the Sandaime passing the position of Hokage to Minato Nimike's. He was obviously the teacher's favorite for so many years. Why did he suddenly abandon him? It doesn't matter. It would be even better if Orochimaru-senpai could kill the Sandaime. In Tawashiro's opinion, it didn't matter whether the Sandaime Hokage was killed or not. Letting Orochimaru, his favorite disciple, kill him might be the best ending for him. I just don't know if Orochimaru-senpai can do it then. Although this possibility is not great, who can say for sure what a guy like Orochimaru is thinking? Chapter 395 Snake Mouth Binding. Let's not talk about these disappointing things. Is Tawashiro still unwilling to show me his Meixiang? Licking his tongue that had recovered, Orochimaru looked at the 3 Magatama in Tawashiro's eyes. This was not the purpose of his fight with him today. No need. At this time, Orochimaru was still at the peak of his life. His soul had not experienced reincarnation and had not been polluted. Whether it was ninjutsu, tai, or genjutsu, they were all at their peak. But Tawashiro didn't feel too much trouble in dealing with him. He didn't even need to open his Meixiang. Really? I was underestimated. Seeing Tawashiro like this, Orochimaru had no good solution. This was how ninjas were. The other party had the strength to say such things. However, his methods were not limited to these. Ninjutsu, 10,000 snakes formation. He opened his mouth and spit out a large group of densely packed venomous snakes, layer upon layer. The number was countless. Fire style, great fire extinguishment. Although the opponent's attack was disgusting, it had to be admitted that these venomous snakes were very troublesome. If they were bitten by accident, it would be troublesome. How could it be so simple? The killing move of this 10,000 snakes formation was not just these venomous snakes. Hiss. With the sound of venomous snakes spitting out their tongues, these venomous snakes opened their sharp mouths, but what they spit out was not venom, but the Kusanagi sword, which was more dangerous than venom. Something seems to be wrong. Dong Shilang, who formed a seal with one hand and spit out a sea of fire from his mouth, was originally prepared to use this ninjutsu to directly extinguish the opponent's snake group, but he obviously thought it was simple. In the sea of fire, densely packed venomous snakes were entangled together, forming a snake wall. The venomous snakes outside resisted the high-temperature orange red flames, while the venomous snakes in the inner circle took this opportunity to rapidly extend the Kusanagi swords spit out from their mouths and stabbed towards Dong Shilang. I still underestimated Uncle Snake. After all, he was an old-school cage-level warrior, so he still had some tricks. Without interrupting the chakra input from his mouth, Tawashiro increased the chakra input from his right hand, and as he increased the chakra, the size of the chakra longsword in his hand began to grow rapidly. In just one breath, he held a chakra longsword that was 20 meters long and nearly 1 meter wide. As he waved his arm, the long swords that attacked him were either knocked away by him or changed their attack trajectories. It seemed that Orochimaru's attack was blocked by him. It's really sharp. The snake opened its mouth wide, and poisonous snakes kept crawling out of its mouth, but Orochimaru still made a sound in his special way, praising the frost sky in Tawashiro's hand. With his praise, a long snake that was different from the other poisonous snakes in his mouth did not rush forward like his companions, and was then burned to death by the sea of fire spewed out of Tawashiro's mouth. Instead, he plunged into the ground without using any chakra, and began to move underground with his own talent. This is really a troublesome ninjutsu. Tawashiro spewed out the flames from his mouth, burning the last poisonous snake into charcoal, and complained while looking at Orochimaru in the distance. I just don't know how Tawashiro will deal with the next attack. Standing up straight, Orochimaru's expression was calm. He didn't feel unhappy that his attack was resolved by Tawashiro, and even the fact that the opponent didn't use the Meixiang didn't seem to attract his attention. Ninjutsu? Snake mouth binding technique. A long black snake suddenly emerged from Tawashiru's side. As soon as it appeared, the long snake opened its big mouth to the limit. As the snake's mouth opened wide, black runes began to emerge on the ground around Tawashiru. This is a ninjutsu I specially prepared. I think even Tawashiru-kun can't escape easily. I didn't expect that the senior also has this method of trapping people. He nodded slightly and looked at the environment he was in. There was a pink flesh wall all around him, and he was also in a long passage. Needless to say, it was also a summoning technique similar to the one Jiraiya used to trap Kisame and Ichi. This ninjutsu has trapped many enemies. I wonder if it can help me trap Tawashiru-kun this time. Looking at the calm strength, Orochimaru's eyes flickered. He was a little unsure whether this ninjutsu that combined summoning and sealing techniques could trap the opponent. If it was an ordinary enemy, this ninjutsu could completely bind the enemy, and then give himself time to slowly brew the opponent. But Tawashiru was different, not to mention the Meixiang. The chakra sword in the opponent's hand was a great threat. But he did make preparations in advance. What is this? With absolute confidence in the chakra sword in his hand, Dong Shilang was about to swing the sword directly to penetrate these flesh-colored channels, and black lines began to spread from these walls. Then, like a living thing, it crawled towards Dong Shilang. Immobilization technique. Looking at the black curse seals crawling all over his body, Dong Shilang tried to move his body and found that there was indeed no movement. I didn't expect that Senior Orochimaru had such a trick. It really surprised me. In order to catch Dong Shilang, I spent a lot of effort. And what you will be surprised about is far more than that. Standing about 10 meters in front of Dong Shilang, Orochimaru did not relax his vigilance because his immobilization technique worked, but continued to make seals with one hand to further enhance the effect of this ninjutsu. At the same time, a faint fragrance began to spread in this small space. Poison? As soon as he smelled this smell, Dong Shilang held his breath. Orochimaru's poison is not the kind of herbal poison that does not hurt like chemicals. He only inhaled a little bit and felt dizzy. Fortunately, he is now in a strong physique, and he can recover by just shaking his head. If an ordinary ninja were here, he would probably faint directly after smelling this poison. You can resist the specially prepared neurotoxin. Dong Shilang's body is really perfect. This poison is a neurotoxin that he carefully prepared. He didn't expect that the effect would be so limited, but this also proved the perfection of his body. The immobilization technique that Orochimaru used to control Dong Shilang is very special. To maintain this immobilization technique, he cannot let go of the hand seal in his hand, otherwise he would have already pounced on Dong Shilang and admired his body. Chapter 396, Yin Dun Clone. Just when Dong Shilang was sealed by Orochimaru's snake mouth seal, 5 or 6 kilometers away from the place where they were fighting, a middle-aged Iwagakure ninja silently put down the telescope in his hand. Prepare to retreat. The enemy is not something we can deal with. After flipping through the ninja manual in his hand, looking at the 2 photos in it, and confirming the appearance of the enemy again, Captain Healing turned around and left. But Captain, shouldn't we go and drive them away? A young team member, obviously not wanting to retreat so easily, looked at the direction where Dong Shilang and his team were fighting, and said unwillingly, "Idiot, the enemy is a ninja of the level of Tsuchikage, and we will die in vain even if we go. Rather than this, we should bring back the information." Captain Healing simply scolded the young subordinate and led the team away from the original place. Senior Orochimaru's methods are really diverse. Trapped in place by Orochimaru, Dong Shilang did not show any panic, and looked at the other party with a calm expression, as if his current dangerous situation did not exist at all. It seems that Tawashiru's methods are not much inferior. Seeing the other party's unhurried appearance, Orochimaru realized something and his face became more solemn. At the same time, his eyes were also roaming up and down Tawashiru's body, as if he wanted to see through Tawashiru's entire body. "Did you find it?" Seeing Orochimaru's actions, Tawashiru no longer needed to disguise himself. As his voice fell, Another Toshiro stood up in the shadow of his body. It was somewhat similar to the toad flat body shadow manipulation technique used by Jiraiya when he sneaked into the Hidden Rain village in the original work. Toshiro also hid his real body in the shadow. The one fighting Orochimaru outside was his clone. Exquisite hiding. Actually fooled me. Is it a clone technique related to Yindun? Toshiro really surprised me, since he had always trapped a Yindun clone. Orochimaru did not need to continue to maintain the immobilization technique, but pointed the Kusanagi sword in his hand at Toshiro. I have to thank Orochimaru's impure world reincarnation technique. With this ninjutsu, some so-called family secret techniques are no longer secrets to me. Living people can plant curse seals on themselves to ensure that they will not reveal secrets, but the dead have no such scruples. In addition, with the control of his pupil power, the dead people summoned by him have no way to resist him. Oh, it seems that Toshiro has tried this ninjutsu. Even Orochimaru did not expect that Toshiro would use the impure world reincarnation ninjutsu to torture intelligence, or in other words, secret techniques. It seems that Toshiro is not a person who follows the rules. When Orochimaru thought that the other party might have mastered the secret ninjutsu of a large number of Konoha families, he wanted to know what his teacher or the patriarch of those secret technique families would look like if they knew this. At the same time, he also knew that his idea this time might not be realized at all. Originally, he wanted to try to capture Toshiro before getting Pain's body and try the corpse-free reincarnation on him. Although the opponent is very strong and is not a good candidate for trial, Orochimaru is confident that he can control the situation. It seems that Senior Orochimaru is also very interested in my body. With summoning techniques, immobilization techniques, and poison, the opponent is not trying to see the Meixiang, but simply wants to use himself as a container for reincarnation. But isn't he a little too confident? Looking at Orochimaru, who smiled but said nothing, Danshiro really wanted to say that it was useless for you to do this. If you can't even handle Sasuke's 3 Magatama, don't have these crooked thoughts. But he also knew that there is a saying that you won't turn back until you hit the wall. So let's wait until Orochimaru has been taught a lesson several times before we talk about it. So, Senior Orochimaru, in the next battle, you have to be careful. Don't let me kill you easily. Taking the chakra sword from the Yindun clone's hand, letting him turn into a shadow and sneak into his own shadow, Danshiro began to fight the opponent with his own body. Not bad clone. Standing in place, quietly watching Toshiro's clone turn into a black shadow and disappear in the opponent's shadow, Orochimaru licked his lips and said, if Narashikaku saw this scene, I wonder what he would think. Compared with the shadow binding technique of the Nara family, Toshiro's Yindun clone is undoubtedly more difficult to deal with, especially when fighting with the opponent in close combat. If you don't pay special attention to the opponent's shadow, you will be killed by Toshiro if you are not careful. Nara clan, it doesn't matter. Even if they see me performing this ninjutsu, there is nothing to say. After all, this clone technique is very different from their family secret technique. With his Yindun attainments, how could a mere shadow imitation technique satisfy him? As soon as he got the relevant information of this ninjutsu, he changed this ninjutsu beyond recognition. Now even if it is placed in front of Shikaku, the other party probably won't recognize it, let alone express his opinion. Okay, let's not talk about these irrelevant things. Let's see if this so-called snake mouth binding technique is as unbreakable as the senior said, and whether it can withstand the long sword in my hand. After saying this, Dong Shilang directly swung the chakra long sword in his hand and stabbed the flesh-colored wall next to him. This was not enough. In order to prevent Orochimaru from interfering, Dong Shilang opened his mouth and spit out a flame that occupied the entire narrow passage at the other party. These flames can not only restrain Orochimaru, but also have another function, which is to burn the toxins in the air. As for oxygen, Dong Shilang said that he would have no problem holding his breath for 10 minutes. Puff. As Dong Shilang increased the chakra input in his hand, a sound of a sharp blade cutting flesh came, and then the flesh-colored walls in front of him turned into a white smoke and disappeared. Dong Shilang, who had completed all this, did not stop his actions. but turned into an invisible afterimage and rushed towards the position of Orochimaru in his perception. "Come on!" Hearing the noise, Orochimaru had no intention of backing down. As one of the three ninjas, he was proud. He was very upset when he was taught a lesson by Jiraiya's disciple Pain some time ago. He just took the opportunity of this battle with Toshiro to vent the depression that had accumulated deep in his heart. Chapter 397 Sealing Technique. Swish. Almost at the same moment, Toshiro appeared in front of Orochimaru, with the chakra sword in his hand pointing directly at Orochimaru's head. He was extremely ruthless as soon as he attacked, showing no mercy. Orochimaru's response was not bad either. He anticipated the enemy in advance, twisted his body like a snake, and his neck strangely became longer and bent, easily avoiding Toshiro's amazingly fast slash. It's not that simple. Toshiro was not surprised to see Orochimaru dodge his attack. But as soon as he finished speaking, another Toshiro appeared in his shadow, also holding a chakra sword in his hand, and stabbed at Orochimaru. Orochimaru was slightly surprised, but his reaction was not slow at all. He twisted his head again, and his neck became longer, like a python, and went around Toshiro's left ribs, a position that was difficult to guard against. As for the attack of Toshiro's shadow, he simply ignored it. "You want to use the snake substitute technique to play a trick of exchanging injuries with me?" Toshhiro's reaction was extremely concise. The kunai in his right hand gently rotated, and the chakra sword in his hand stretched several meters in an instant. Then he slashed down with great force, silently and without any obstruction, and cut off Orochimaru's neck in an instant, as easy as a hot scalpel cutting butter. After a successful attack, Toshiro did not feel the joy of success. The beheaded snake turned into two soft pieces and fell to the ground. Orochimaru used the earth substitute to avoid Toshiro's attack. Boring trick. This conventional tactic of using a substitute to cover and hide the main body for a sneak attack is completely meaningless to Toshiro, who has excellent perception in the Sharingan. Just like now, Toshiro clearly sensed that Orochimaru was hiding underground at the 6 o'clock direction, and it seemed that he had also performed a summoning technique. In a flash, he heard the rustling of trees and grass around him, and then a giant snake jumped out, opening its mouth and biting him. Meixiang had already noticed it, and increased his chakra output. The blue-green chakra sword in his right hand swung in the air in the direction of the psychic snake, and a blue-green crescent-shaped blade of light shot towards the psychic snake. It was like a half-moon-shaped laser that condensed and did not disperse. With a puff, the snake head as big as a carriage was cut off by a sword, and the remaining snake body twisted wildly on the grass, and the snake blood was scattered everywhere. This amazing speed, and the unprecedented sharp chakra sword, and this feeling of brushing against death, it's really exciting. Even in the underground without any light source, Orochimaru's eyes seemed to be shining with a layer of golden light. His body began to tremble slightly because of being too excited, which was a sign of his excitement. He was already hiding underground, moving quickly underground, and at the same time, he pressed his hands on the ground. Hundreds of venomous snakes immediately crawled out of the ground, twisting their bodies into springs, and shot out with a whoosh, rushing towards Meixiang like a sharp sword. The swarm of venomous snakes had a wide attack range, large numbers, and fast speed. Moreover, in the side of the Sharingan, their bodies were covered with a layer of strange chakra, which should be the hardening technique of Earth Escape. Senior Orochimaru, don't you understand that this level of attack has no effect on me at all? Facing these venomous snakes, Meixiang swung the chakra sword in his hand fiercely. A faint light curtain formed in front of him. This light curtain seemed to have a physical body, emitting a blue-green fluorescence, which lasted for a long time. Crack! As a venomous snake hit the light curtain, it was like a fragile crystal, which was hit by a hard object and emitted cracks. Then it broke into countless tiny light blades, cutting the venomous snakes that shot in from all directions into countless pieces. Orochimaru seized the opportunity when Toshiro was dealing with the attacks of these venomous snakes, and suddenly emerged from behind Toshiro and launched a sneak attack on him again. What a troublesome clone! Seeing the clone coming out from Tawashiro's shadow again and blocking his sword, Orochimaru also felt a little headache. With this clone always guarding in the opponent's shadow, it was almost impossible for him to sneak attack. This Yandun clone was specially developed by Tawashiro to defend his back. What is the most dangerous thing in the Naruto world? It is not the so-called secret ninjutsu or blood limit, pupil technique, space-time ninjutsu, etc. The most dangerous is undoubtedly backstabbing. I haven't seen the dignified Madara, who was stabbed in the back several times in a row. As a time traveler, how could he not be on guard against this? Before Orochimaru could say a few more words about the difficulty of the opponent's clone, a sword light as fast as lightning had already appeared in his eyes. Ding! He used the Kusanagi sword in his hands to defend himself, taking advantage of the opponent's force. The snake tail under Orochimaru squirmed and twisted, taking him a little distance from Tawashiro. With the strength and speed displayed by Tawashiro, coupled with his Sharingan and the Yandun clone under his feet, fighting him in close combat would not give him any advantage. Where do you want to go, Senor? Although the opponent replaced his human legs with a snake tail, his speed increased greatly. But his speed was also the best in the ninja world, and he easily caught up with Orochimaru. With a hum, the size of the frost sky in his hand suddenly increased, turning into a 2-foot-wide and 2-meter-long sword, slashing at Orochimaru fiercely. Swish! Being attacked from behind by Tawashiro, Orochimaru only had time to turn sideways, and then he was split into 2 pieces by Tawashiro, from the left shoulder to the right abdomen. This time he didn't have time to use the clone technique, and his original body was completely and truly hit by his sword. Unfortunately, this kind of attack does not cause any substantial damage to a jerk like Orochimaru. At most, it can only consume some of his chakra. Orochimaru, who was broken into 2 pieces on the ground, did not bleed from the broken parts of his upper and lower bodies. Instead, poisonous snakes sprang out, and the poisonous snakes on both sides intertwined with each other, stitching the 2 halves of his body together. Pervert! Seeing this scene, Dong Xiaolang lost interest in continuing to swing his sword. This bastard, even if you chop him with 10 or 8 swords, for him, it will only consume more chakra. In this case, we can only try the sealing technique. Sealing technique. Tianjin Suming seal. As the seal in his hand was completed, a black rune entangled between Dong Xiaolang's palms. This was obtained from the Uzumaki secret scroll. It can be performed without the blood of the vortex. It is one of the highest level sealing techniques, which can seal the target's life energy. Once hit by this sealing technique, no matter how difficult Orochimaru, the jerk, is, this sealing technique can play a certain role. Chapter 398 Seal. Having just consumed a large amount of chakra to restore his body to its original state, Orochimaru had no time to catch his breath. A flash of sword light stabbed at him again. You really don't give me a chance to breathe. Using the Kusanagi sword in his hand to block the attack, Orochimaru looked at the other Tawashiro. What is this? Looking at the black rune in the other's hand, Orochimaru's pupils, which were originally needle-shaped, shrank again. It's a sealing technique. As the beloved disciple of the third Hokage, he was familiar with sealing techniques, and he even read the Uzumaki secret scroll. He knew that if he was hit by this move, it would be quite troublesome. Shadow clone technique. Without any hesitation, facing the Sharingan, he very wisely used the shadow clone developed by the second Hokage, splitting into 6 shadow clones, either attacking Tawashiro's Yandun clone and the main body, or twisting his snake tail to distance himself from Tawashiro at an extremely fast speed. This is the best way to confuse the opponent. Delusion. The white smoke that appeared when the shadow clones were activated concealed Orochimaru's body very well. Even his Sharingan could not find the abnormality between them in a short time, but there was a way to deal with it. Fire style. Phoenix flower fire technique. He opened his mouth and spit out a large number of football-sized fireballs, attacking the 6 clones one by one, disrupting the opponent's action rhythm. Dongshiro's actions did not stop. The 2-foot-wide and 2-meter-long sword was thrown directly by Dongshiro to the heads of these Orochimaru. Explode! With a low shout from his mouth, The chakra longsword that was still in the air suddenly exploded and turned into a bunch of small swords less than 2 inches long, densely packed and countless in number. Just like a sudden rain in a summer afternoon, it set off a blue-green wave. After the frost sky exploded, it turned into countless small sharp blades and splashed towards Orochimaru. Swish, 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 puff, puff. The former is the sound of the blades breaking through the air, and the latter is the sound of these small swords piercing the grass and soil around. These chakra blades, which are less than 2 inches in size and extremely thin, make a very sharp sound when they cut through the air, and their power cannot be underestimated. The 4 Orochimaru who fled scattered and lay on the grass, twisting and turning to fully demonstrate what it means to move like a snake. Unfortunately, the intensity of Dong Shilang's attack this time was too high. Although he avoided a large number of attacks, with the sound of the clones disappearing with 3 bangs, only the opponent's body was left in the field. Moreover, there were densely packed small holes on the body, and a large number of crimson blood spots oozed out of these small holes. What a terrifying attack! This kind of full coverage attack method was something he had no way to completely avoid, but now was not the time to sigh about it, because Dong Shilang's figure had already caught up with him. Want to use this Yindun clone to entangle me first? His other 2 shadow clones, because they were entangled with Dong Shilang's main body, had been around the opponent, so they were not affected by the previous attack. Now they are still using their last remaining energy to help him entangle Dong Shilang's main body. Can't entangle with him. For people of their level, the strength of the clone is still a little insufficient. Most of the time, it plays an auxiliary role such as delaying time and confusing the audience. If you are really entangled by these clones and spend a lot of energy on this, it will play into the opponent's hands. The long sword in his hand danced lightly, and while attacking this Yindun clone, Orochimaru opened his snake mouth wide. A scarlet tongue, carrying a large amount of chakra, drew an arc and attacked the flank of this clone. Is it a phantom clone? The Kusanagi sword in his hand and the tongue attack all missed, and Orochimaru quickly distanced himself from the clone. This clone had some of the properties of a phantom clone, and his physical attacks seemed to have no effect at all. This was indeed the case. This was a shadow clone specially developed by Toshiro using Yindun and shadow imitation techniques. When a physical attack was coming, he could directly turn his body or part of his body into a shadow to avoid physical damage. Even if Orochimaru's Kusanagi sword was sharp, it couldn't do anything to a shadow. Snap! Retracting his extended tongue back into his mouth, he made a smacking sound with a bit of stickiness. Orochimaru looked at the Yindun clone in front of him and began to think about how he should deal with him. If he couldn't quickly deal with the opponent's clone, he wouldn't be able to hold on to the opponent's real body for long. What is this? Although the opponent was somewhat similar to a phantom clone, he had many methods. Whether it was sealing techniques or secret ninjutsu, he knew a lot and there were many ways to deal with him. But when he wanted to take action, an accident occurred. He found that he could not move. Shadow imitation technique. Orochimaru rolled his eyes and looked at the black shadow connecting him and the opponent. He didn't know what tricks had hit him. However, he was not panicked. He, Orochimaru, was not an ordinary person. Not only did he have a snake tail that was different from ordinary people, but he also had a third arm. If an ordinary person was hit by the shadow imitation technique, it might be difficult to move, but he was not an ordinary person. Not only could he move with his snake tail, but he could also try to attack with his third hand. He opened his jaw, and the long tongue in his mouth shot out again, wrapped around the Kusanagi sword in his hand, and stabbed towards the opponent's figure. Since the opponent wanted to use the shadow imitation technique to control his actions, he could no longer maintain the phantom state, and there was no way to ignore the sharpness of the Kusanagi sword. Squeak! Looking at the Kusanagi sword stabbing at him, Toshiro's clone was also helpless. Orochimaru is really a difficult guy. Most people, after being hit by the shadow imitation technique, can only surrender, but this pervert can not only move, but also counterattack so quickly. As a last resort, he could only loosen the restraint on Orochimaru, but fortunately, he had bought enough time, and the original body had already dealt with Orochimaru's shadow clone. It's over. Seal middle. Danjinsu life seal. His left hand pressed on Orochimaru's body, and as his voice fell, a large number of black runes were like a big black net that wrapped Orochimaru's whole body. It was not until this time that Toshiro breathed a sigh of relief, and finally dealt with this annoying guy. Orochimaru is really too sticky. Yes, it's sticky. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 399 Exposed. At the border of the land of Earth, in a sparse forest not far from the road, there were pools of scarlet blood and pits on the charred ground. The surrounding destroyed forests and the unextinguished flames all told of the fierceness of the battle. Is this Uchiha's Meixiang Sharingan? With one hand on the chakra skeleton, Orochimaru's eyes were filled with excitement, greedily looking at everything in front of him. Boom! A muffled sound came, and a skeleton arm composed of chakra appeared, with an unstoppable force, and a punch hit Orochimaru's body. Smoke and dust scattered. And in addition to the ugly-looking Toshiro, there was also the figure of Orochimaru, the sixth brother. It's really a fascinating power. But compared with the Samsara Eye, there is still a certain gap. Less than 10 meters in front of Toshiro, Orochimaru's figure rose from the soil again, looking at Toshiro wrapped in Susanoo, with a hint of thought in his eyes. Compared with Toshiro's Meixiang Sharingan, Pain Samsara is undoubtedly more oppressive. However, the pupil power in the opponent's eyes does not seem to be as active as Toshiro's. Senior is really surprising me. Wrapped in a circle of orange-red chakra, Toshiro looked at Orochimaru, who seemed to be thinking, and the corners of his mouth twitched uncontrollably. Beside him, a human skin or snake skin with a vague appearance of Orochimaru lay quietly at his feet. From his wide-open mouth, it seemed that a silent mockery could be seen. It seemed to be mocking Toshiro for thinking that he could defeat him so easily. Just now, Toshiro, who had cast the Tianjin Suming seal, looked at the dense black spells on the opponent's body and thought that he had dealt with Orochimaru. He relaxed his vigilance a little, but he did not expect that Orochimaru, the sixth brother, taught him a good lesson and let him know what it meant to be a sudden turn and what it meant to be the sixth brother. When he was about to take back his Yindun clone and the spoils, an accident occurred. A pair of pale hands with mucus came out of Orochimaru's mouth, seeming to be impatient, or perhaps because the opportunity was not to be missed. The hands that came out of his throat pressed against his upper and lower jaws. He tore his mouth open, revealing his other body. Then he rushed towards him at a speed that Toshiro could not react to. At the same time, chakra surged in his hands, and a different sealing technique took shape in his hands, and he pressed it towards Toshiro. If Toshiro, who had just turned around, had not seen a snake shadow in the eyes of his clone, and his own perception ability was also outstanding, he would probably have to wait until the other party got close to him before he discovered the other party's means. In a flash, Toshiro first thought of a countermeasure, which was none other than his eye technique, Susanoo. As for the unprinted ninjutsu, he estimated that Orochimaru would directly perform the sealing technique against his attack. I didn't expect that the senior could use this method to deal with the sealing technique. It really opened my eyes. Looking at the snake skin on the ground, Dong Shilang had a headache. Orochimaru, this guy, actually performed a sealing technique on his own snake skin, sealing his Tianjin Sumai in reverse. Then he used the unique skill of peeling off his skin to take off the two sealing techniques on his body, and then launched a surprise attack on Dong Shilang. This operation really caught him off guard. Unfortunately, Dong Shilang still blocked it with Susanoo in the end. Licking his lips, Orochimaru looked at Dong Shilang now, and the eager look in his eyes could be clearly seen even by Kabuto in the distance. It doesn't seem to be very safe here. Kabuto swallowed his saliva and looked at Orochimaru and Dong Shilang in the distance, thinking that it would be better to stay away. Looking at the look of Lord Orochimaru, it was obvious that he was going to use a big move. If he stayed where he was, he would definitely be affected by the aftermath of the battle. It seems that the senior is still planning to continue. Dong Shilang had a headache. Did Orochimaru want to release the eight-headed technique? He knew this ninjutsu that was comparable to the ordinary Susanoo, but there was no need for him to fight to the death with the other party. How about we stop here? If we continue to fight, it won't be a simple competition, and the companions of Senior Orochimaru seem to be very concerned about our fight. Dong Shilang took the Kusanagi sword handed over by his clone, waved it casually, looked at Orochimaru and said lightly. As far as he knew, Orochimaru's eight-headed technique was fine, but there was a feature that it seemed to be not afraid of physical attacks at all, and could proliferate almost infinitely. If he continued to fight with the other party, although he was confident that he could defeat the other party, he really had no confidence in killing him. Moreover, such a big battle would consume a lot of pupil power. His Meixiang was now in a growth period and had not yet evolved into an eternal Meixiang. For him, this kind of consumption was avoided if possible. Moreover, his excellent perception also sensed a special bystander nearby. Companion Orochimaru, who was still eager to try, turned his golden snake eyes after hearing what Toshiro said, and glanced at Kabuto in the distance. He knew that the companion the other party was talking about was not Kabuto. In this case, it can only be a companion of Akatsuki. If it is correct, it should be Zetsu. What a bummer. Although he did not sense Zetsu's aura, he believed that Toshiro would not deceive him on such a matter. Alas, why don't they fight anymore? Only 800 or 900 meters away from Toshiro and Orochimaru, in a clump of ordinary grass, a half-black and half-white head was quietly looking at Toshiro and Orochimaru in the distance. Seeing that after such a long battle, the two of them did not use their last trump card to fight as they expected, the white head asked, "I don't know." The hoarse voice of Black Zetsu sounded. The sound was harsh. "Have we been discovered?" "Probably not." Black Zetsu carefully observed the movements of Orochimaru and Toshiro, and then said affirmatively that the two of them did not move their sights much, so they probably did not discover their traces. "That's a pity. I wanted to see Uchiha Toshiro's Meixiang Sharingan." And Orochimaru, this guy with ulterior motives, does he have any incredible trump card? Chapter 400 Harvest. After a long time, a breeze blew by, and only Dong Shilang was left, holding the Flying Thunder God technique, the cells of the first generation, and the scrolls related to the curse seal. Dong Shilang was very satisfied with this harvest, especially the first generation cells, which made him most satisfied. His eyes have now entered a relatively critical state. If he wants to go further, he needs to use the white Zetsu brand eye drops for a long time. This time, he got the first generation of white cells, which is just right for upgrading his eye drops. Moreover, when Orochimaru left, he didn't even take his Kusanagi sword. It's not that he didn't cherish it, but the news Dong Shilang gave him was really shocking. Controlling gravitational repulsion, alienating summoned beasts, absorbing chakra, controlling souls. All these things made him feel excited. He didn't expect that the so-called samsara had so many abilities. He had to think about it carefully, otherwise, he would never get the samsara from Pain. At the same time, there was a trace of regret in his heart. Pain had seen him. He, Tsunade and Jiraiya had met the kid together, but he had never thought that the other party would have such eyes. How unpredictable things are. In the office of the Tsuchikage, the third Tsuchikage Inoki received information from his subordinates through special channels. Orochimaru, one of the three ninjas, and Uchiha Toshiro appeared at the border. There was a big battle between them. After reading the information carefully, Inoki frowned deeply. The war had just ended not long ago. How could such two powerful ninjas suddenly appear at the border of the land of Earth and have a big battle? Is there any conspiracy in Konoha? Immediately send elite personnel to check the situation nearby, and strengthen the vigilance in the village to guard against those unfamiliar faces. After instructing his Anbu, Inoki cast his eyes into the distance. The name Uchiha reminded him of some very unpleasant memories. At this time, a group of 7 or 8 ninjas slowly walked in at the gate of Konoha village. A young man with short curly hair, a round nose, handsome features, and upturned eyes, looked at the gate in front of him and smiled for the first time in a long time. Thank you for your cooperation in this border mission. When I come back from Hokage, let's get together again. How about barbecue? With a warm smile, sunny face, and friendly attitude, Shizui showed a gentle attitude that was not common in Uchiha. Ah, how can I be so embarrassed? If it weren't for Shizui's efforts to save the situation, some of us might have been injured or killed. How can I let you treat me? Hearing Shizui's invitation, an ordinary chunin in a green vest was a little flattered and declined repeatedly. He almost made a big mistake this time. If it weren't for Shizui, his teammate, who stepped forward, he would have even thought of committing suicide to apologize. Now how can he have the face to let Shizui treat him to a meal? It's not Shizui's turn to treat. If anyone wants to treat, it should be Yuki, the idiot. He almost messed up this mission. It's a good opportunity to rip him off so that he can learn a lesson. A teammate saw this and quickly spoke up. Yuki, the idiot, would never learn a lesson unless he was given a little blood. That's right, Yuki, you have to thank Shizui. A barbecue is a must. Shizui-san is really worthy of being the instant body Shizui. Those tough guys were dealt with by you in just a few rounds. As soon as the chunin who spoke for Shizui finished speaking, his companions around him spoke up one after another and began to ask Yuki to treat them. When someone treated them to a big meal, they would not lose out no matter how they calculated it, and they all followed suit. Among them, there were even some female ninjas who looked at Shizui with a faint glow in their eyes. It's not as exaggerated as everyone says. Even without me, I believe everyone can complete this mission smoothly. Besides, we are all companions from the same village. We should take care of each other. I just did what a Konoha ninja should do. Being praised by everyone, Shizui showed his shy side. Forget about these male ninjas. Although they looked at him with gratitude, they were more of a comradeship. But what about those female ninjas? They looked at him one by one as if they wanted to eat her alive. They were more terrifying than the enemies on the battlefield. It's decided, everyone should not be left behind. Let's gather for the barbecue. After being teased by his companions, Yuki decided to be generous and directly invited everyone present to go to the barbecue together. On the one hand, it was to have a good gathering, and on the other hand, he really wanted to thank Shizui for saving his life. While talking and laughing, such a large group of ninjas stepped into the gate of Konoha together. After Shizui handed over the task and had dinner with his mission companions, it was already past 8 o'clock when he returned to the family residence. Finally home, looking at the red torii at the entrance of the family residence and the conspicuous family emblem on it, he just sighed and then walked towards you, Shizui. Just after crossing the torii, a still somewhat childish voice interrupted Shizui's steps. It's Ichi. It's so late, haven't you rested yet? Looking at this familiar figure, Shizui's tone became unusually gentle. He walked to Ichi's side in 3 or 2 steps and compared it to his shoulders. Great, you've grown taller again. Uchiha Ichi, who was already 11.5 years old, was now taller than Shizui's shoulders and looked like a 13 or 14-year-old boy. Are you waiting for me here? Looking at Ichi, who was a little embarrassed by his actions, Shizui smiled happily. It's really good to have a friend who is like a younger brother. I heard that Shizui has completed the mission and is back, so I'm waiting for you here. I want to hear Shizui's thoughts on some things. Shizui can be said to be his only friend in the family. If he doesn't understand something about some missions or training, he will explain it to him in detail. It can be said that he knows everything, whether it is ninjutsu or other things. Let's go. This is not a good place to chat. Let's talk while walking. Although it was night, there were still clan members coming in and out of the gate of the station from time to time, but most of them were going to the security forces. Yeah. Quietly following behind Shizui, Ichi looked up and down at Shizui. The other party had changed a lot in the past 1 or 2 years. Actively participated in ordinary tasks in the village. Whether it was civilian ninjas on the mission or those family ninjas, he got along with them gently. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.